If you guys like that. Teenage Fan Club, The Concept. What's the name of that song? We don't want that. That's them playing in front of quite a few people. Quite a few people. All right, so let's do this thing. We have Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore versus. Is it versus? Or is it an exercise in trying like hell to help a brother out? I don't know. Let's see what we think. Oh. We got to get it up here. We're going to go through it. Everybody else has gone through it. I think at this point I have I've listened to Jimmy do it twice. Twixt. I've listened to RBN go through it. And who else? Garland Nixon. Garland Nixon. My brother Garland Nixon went through it. And he had the exact same feelings that I had. So, let's just real quick. I'm going to get out of the way what I thought about this thing. All right. So let me show you that. Pull it up here. Your videos. So I made a couple shorts. I was pretty proud of them. I think they were pretty good because YouTube took my limited my visibility, so that's always a good sign. Well, let's see here. This is the first one I did. Pull it up. We will share this tab instead.
So Cornel West.
Now I got to put it on here. Got to get used to the old StreamYard again.
Was just on the Jimmy Dore show, and it was one of the most painful, disappointing things I've seen in a while. So Cornel West more or less tried to imply that if Jimmy kept going with his line of argument, that Jimmy Dore was a borderline racist. And the disgust I felt is the exact same type of disgust that Jimmy was trying to communicate to Cornel when he focuses on white supremacy, he focuses on trans rights issues. The working class doesn't identify with this, and it's just destroying your own campaign. So either you're a plant or you've just been a Harvard professor way too long. Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael made me want to get up and fight. You made me want to not listen to you anymore.
So there's that one. There's three. They were the first three I did. And I still stand by them. Let's do this one. Number 2. Should come up. Oh, all right. This tab is called, I think this one. Yeah. Here you go.
It's on Jimmy Dore, and I think everyone who watched it was disappointed. But I want to remind you, this is what you get if your leader doesn't organically rise from the working class. We need a working class party. Just parachuting someone into power through one of these pre-established parties, even a pre-established third party. It's going to be disappointing. Why do they not sound like they're a member of the working class? Because they're not. Cornel West is a Harvard professor. You think he's going to represent you? Making 30 grand a year? How can you hang out in Harvard and do that? You can't. And he just proved it on the Jimmy Dore show. Jimmy's got a little money, but he's more or less like a Chicago bricklayer at heart. He's not a Harvard professor. And that's what it gets. That's when a bricklayer talks to a Harvard professor. That's what it gets. The Harvard professor more or less will be like, oh, you're a little racist. Seems like, well, good luck getting my vote. Cornel.
Well, there's number 2. I still stand by that. And one more. This one's at Jimmy. I'm hard on Cornel, and now I'm going to be hard on Jimmy. Jimmy needs a little too.
West in my last short, but I'm going to be a little...
Here we go. Let's do this.
Was a little hard on West in my last short, but I'm going to be a little hard on you now, Jimmy Dore. You should have ran for president, dude. If you don't like what Cornel West is doing, you should have done it yourself. You'll be mad at him. At least he had the balls to do it. You should have done it. I know what you didn't know, because you want to live comfy. You know they'll destroy your life. It doesn't matter. This is bigger than your life, and you didn't do it. You should do it. You better do it next time. But we'll see if you do. Because it's hard to take your anger seriously if I know that you aren't fully in this.
So that was me the night of. That's how I felt. It was live stream. You couldn't even watch it. Is there a hotkey for this? Shift 1. Does this work? You couldn't even watch it on Jimmy's channel. I mean, unless you caught the live stream. So I was like, I processed what I'd seen. And that was just my gut reaction, was like, I live in a place where the median income is $28,000 a year if you're doing well. And I think it's 97% white. And I know most people around me, most people in rural America, when they listen to that interview, were not going to be interested in anything else Cornel West had to say. And it's not because they're racist. A bunch of them voted for Obama. It's because it sounds like the same Joe Biden bullcrap they hear all the time, which is exactly what Jimmy was saying. And just like my buddy Noah here, I like Garland's take on this. I got that queued up right at the point that I want to hear it too, which is rare for me. So let's pull it up, Garland. This is the point. I listened to it earlier. I took a screenshot because I go, listen who this sounds like. Listen who this sounds like.
Bastards. That's what we see when we see these people, right? When Cornel West sees them, he sees his classmates. He sees his classmates. He sees his alumni from the same college that he does. He speaks their language, and he doesn't speak a different language. You see, he's not just a member of academia, and I'm not saying this to denigrate Cornel West. As I said, I like him. He's using the language of let's just say the language of the oppressor. And I don't mean oppressor of black people. I mean oppressor of the world, right? The neoliberals. But if you lived in China all your life, you're going to speak damn Chinese. If you lived in Russia all your life, you're going to speak Russian. And if you went to Harvard and Yale and Princeton, you taught at Harvard, you're going to speak Harvardese. And Jake Sullivan and Blinken and all these other people, Rhodes Scholars, you name it, right? These people speak a particular language with particular words. I would argue that Cornel West is in fact genuine when he says he wants whatever groups, people of color, LGBTQ, whatever, when he says he wants everybody to be treated fairly. I would argue that Cornel West is like me. He does. He doesn't want anybody to be treated better or worse. Cornel West wants a world where everybody, this is the way I put it, every human being has the same expectation of rights. Me, I don't have to go name them because that's not the language I speak. I can say I want every human being to have the same expectation of rights. In Harvard, the language that you use is that somebody says, Cornel West language hasn't changed in 30 years. It's not his fault that the Democrats co-opted that same language. Man, we have some brilliant people. Iceman Vamp. Let me show that. That's brilliant. Let's talk off of that. Iceman, got to tell you, bro, that's brilliant. Yeah, that's not Wim Hof. Is it the real Iceman? Exactly his point. Cornel West has been saying this stuff for the last 30 years. Why? Because he meant it. He wants everybody. Look at his position with the Palestinians. He couldn't get tenure at Harvard because his position with the Palestinians was, hey, they're not getting a fair shot. And he didn't get tenure at Harvard. He had to leave. Just think, tenure at Harvard, the value of that. Very important, but he had to leave because he wasn't willing to compromise his belief that the Palestinians weren't getting a fair shot.
Props for that.
He's a good guy. I'm going to defend him as a human being because I think he's a good guy. So he was willing to take the hit and sacrifice. But as Iceman Vamp said, the neoliberals they looked and they were like, people are saying that other people are being treated fair, that the little guy ain't getting fair. We'll take that. We'll co-opt that. Then we'll pretend that we're standing for the little guy and human rights. And then we'll utilize that to oppress the whole damn world. You know, it's like, imagine a world where people, a nation where people were so gentle and kind that they never had any animosity towards anyone. And then imagine us attacking that world, that country, and stealing everything they had because they'd never see it coming because they'd be nice people. That's the way the neocons think, right? So they co-opted. He's walking around saying the stuff that he said. I agree or not, whatever. He said it out from his heart. But the neocons took it and twisted it into we're the good guys when they ain't. But being a guy who's from the same place, he lived in the same, he stayed in the same circles as them. He has the same worldview in some ways. One of the contradictions, so it comes from his background. It comes from the fact that he's a Harvard and Yale and Princeton guy, and Jimmy and I ain't. If you listen to me, people always say, well, Garland, you're speaking in a very simple way that's easy to understand because that's how I grew up. I grew up around poor people. Even when I wasn't poor anymore, I still had a lot of friends that were poor people. And that's the language of poor people. The language of poor people, we don't have to use a lot of 50-cent words. The language of the working class and the middle class is we just need to understand each other. And so when a lot of my friends, white, black, and what have you, they weren't highly educated people. And it was only important that you understood what the person said, not that you use some 10-syllable word to impress everybody. Right? And Jimmy's similar and I'm similar. We just say what we got to say, and we're easy to understand because we're not using fancy words. We avoid that, you know. Listen to Cornel West, man. Cornel West, again, he speaks like a poet, right? And it sounds beautiful and poetic, but at times it's a little philosophical and deep. And at times, if you listen to Cornel West, you know, you got to have a PhD to kind of grasp what he's really saying as he references and makes these literary allusions to, you know, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or whatever the hell, you know, Herman Melville's Moby Dick or one of these other things. Then in academia, it's self-evident. It is axiomatic. It is, you know what I mean? Axiomatic. It is basically obvious. Everybody knows. Everybody's read Melville and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Of course, when I make an allusion to that, everybody in my circles will understand that, right?
I can't remember the exact part where he talked about what his parents did growing up. I think it may have been
Harvard, Princeton, right? When you see these from poverty, extreme abject poverty, I know what it's like to be extremely poor, and I understand the language that you use and the worldview that you have when you're extremely poor. And I understand the language of the middle class and the upper class. I understand those languages because I've traveled throughout those groups. Grew up probably, you know, working poor. If a cop back then didn't make a lot, and if they had a bunch of kids, it was tough. Working poor, you know, I talk.
There you go.
Him. It's great, but what Jimmy was trying to get across to him was, look, use the language of an oppressive group. People are going to associate you with that. But why did he use the language? And why did Jimmy hear? Jimmy speaks the language that I speak, right? Jimmy's father was apparently a police officer. They grew up, he had a bunch of kids. They didn't have much, you know, right? They didn't have a lot. Grew up probably, working poor. A cop back then didn't make a lot, and if they had a bunch of kids, it was tough. Working poor. I talk about class, middle class, working class, working poor, right, as you go down. I speak Jimmy's language because I grew up when I was a kid, when I was little, extremely poor. And then as I moved into my teenage years, did much, much better, to the point where I was, probably no problems about it. My mom had a bus company. She was making far more than most people were, So I understand the concept. I grew up learning the language of the extreme poverty. My dad was a longshoreman, right? Long story. My parents weren't together when I was born. My dad ended up later years marrying my mom. He was a longshoreman, so he made a decent salary. My mom started a bus company. It worked out real good. She made very well, right? So I understand from poverty, extreme abject poverty. I know what it's like to be extremely poor, and I understand the language that you use.
All right, so let's talk about that. I find it interesting that me, Jimmy, Garland, we haven't talked about this. Really haven't. Believe it or not. I haven't talked to this fine gentleman about this. I do have a good picture here. I do like this picture. Come to the CPI event. You get to meet cool people. These are two fine looking gentlemen, I gotta say. Two fine looking gentlemen. Dapper. In the suits. Look at that, Garland. Nice. Had to fangirl for a second, Garland. I saw somebody in the comments once, and they're like, man, I'd do anything to meet Garland Nixon. I was like, ha ha. I done that. Great guy. But we all, from the gut, I knew, man, this ain't gonna land. Let's just go through it. Let's do a little live take through it. What else are we gonna do on a Friday night? I got that. I wanted to get my take out of the way, and then go through this sucker with you. You guys can comment. Let me know what you think. Let's pull it up here. Oh. This tab is that one.
Welcome back to the show, Dr. Cornel West.
Oh, thank you, my dear brother. I think about you. I think of George Carlin. The Union Seminary is right across the street from George Carlin Place.
Really? No kidding.
What a grand genius. He grew up on 121st and Broadway next to Corpus Christi Church, and they got a beautiful sign saluting him. And beside Richard Pryor, he's got to be one of the greatest comic geniuses of the last 50 years, my brother.
Well, I certainly wish he was still alive right now, because I know he would see through all the propaganda that we've been living through, at least since 2015. But I want to just, before we start, I want to get this out there, because some people misunderstood my coverage of your appearance with Anderson Cooper, and they took it as an attack on you, when I was merely trying to help you get the message right about the Ukraine war. Because as a radical, part of your job is to educate people on what's actually happening, and you have to be crystal clear in explaining it to people, especially about what's happening in Ukraine. So this
will actually be kind of fun to watch with you guys, because I've never watched their facial expressions. I just listened to it. So this will be fun to check in on.
Took that as me trying to attack you, when I was doing it more as a coach, trying to help you and get it right. And that's what I'm going to be doing in this interview also, because I was thrilled to hear that you're running third party. You got more courage than I do to do it. You're a better man than me. And so I appreciate you doing it, because you're getting the message out there about the Ukraine war, about the two-party duopoly. This is really important. And so if I just want to tell people, so if it seems like I'm being critical of Cornel West from here going forward to the election, what it is going to be is me trying to help make his message even better than it is, because I think it's really important that his message get out there. That's what this is about. So anyway, I just wanted to clear that up.
Oh, sure. I think the important thing always is, brother, that, you know, we the anthem of Black folk is lift every voice, not lift every echo. You got a voice, I've got a voice. Our voices overlap. Our voices can have tension. Our voices can conflict. We can learn from one another. We proceed. We've got a similar critique of predatory capitalist society. We've got similar critique of a whole host of issues, and certain things we disagree with. Well, that's understandable too. I'm learning from you. You learning from me. But it's the respect more than anything else that's crucial here. And I think I appreciate you starting off with that kind of a reflection, my brother. Very much so.
So now people make a big deal out of the fact that you endorsed Joe Biden in 2020, and now you're running against him. And the reason what was the reason you endorsed him in 2020, and what has changed since?
Yeah, one, I was thoroughly convinced that we needed an anti-fascist coalition, and that included the kind of milquetoast warmongering neoliberals like Biden. And now it's fairly.
So this is important. You could really sum this up in this. To Dr. West, Joe Biden is a milquetoast neoliberal. He's not a fascist. He's a milquetoast neoliberal. Kind of sounds like something you put on your cereal while you watch Saturday morning cartoons. Commercials. He's just a milquetoast neoliberal.
Clear. Biden had 4 years. He had 4 years to steal the thunder from any kind of Trump challenge. 4 years to try to speak to the needs of poor and working people. 4 years to try to cut back on the military adventurism. That's been characteristic of his whole career. And it's clear to me now that if the only opposition to the escalating neo-fascism in the country is going to be Biden, or Biden-like, then the fascism's coming anyway. We're going to have alternative vision, alternative institutions, alternative infrastructure. It has an alternative passion. And so if all we can do is produce democratic administrations that are caretakers, postponers of the Trump or Trump-like candidates, then the fascism's coming anyway. The only way you really get at the roots of fascism is to break from the corporate duopoly, to show how the two-party system is an impediment for the unleashing not only of American democracy, but also trying to dismantle the empire in terms of the 800 military units around the world, and the military budget taking 57 cents for every dollar. And so in that sense, there's been a shift. There's no doubt about that. Now keep in mind, you know, I supported Ralph Nader and Jill Stein, and in between, I had early supported Bill Bradley, and I had supported John Kerry as a kind of anti right-wing coalition too. So that my jazz-like activities certainly can be characterized at times with a certain kind of inconsistency, but it's the timing of it. Each moment has its own context.
So now our friend Nick Cruz says that many climate activists have no idea how much they destroyed all their credibility by endorsing and supporting Joe Biden, the Nord Stream pipeline bomber, and the largest eco-terrorist in modern human history, for president. Why should anyone take climate or environmental issues seriously when you obviously do not? Now, what do you say back to that kind of critique that by endorsing him, you lose your credibility?
Well, it becomes, I mean, I think, you know, I've been on my dear brother's show a number of times, and I think there's always a certain force in the argument of trying to be consistently third party across the board, having no relation whatsoever to the bourgeois politicians. I think there's force to that. But I think the credibility that one has really is it's holistic. It's
Chris
wholesale rather
We're
than just
sinners in the
retail.
hands of an
And
angry
the
God.
credibility that you have in regard to being consistently
God lets
against
you live
war,
another minute.
consistently against
Wanna get out
capital,
of
consistently against white
Calvinist
supremacy,
Chris said
even
this.
if it has different kind of stances from one election to the next. That would be one of the ways in which I would try to respond to that. That would be the beginning of a response to that.
Amen. That's it.
Okay. Here's another tweet from Nick. He says the same professional managerial class gaslighters want us to take it easy on Bernie. They use civility politics as a weapon so they can comfortably sell out. The working class must reject this and start holding these people accountable for selling us out. So Bernie has sold us out, and I don't need you to call him a sellout or anything. That's fine. But I do want to see, this is your response, because Bernie was asked about your campaign, and he said it shouldn't happen, and he's against it, and he's endorsing
Right.
Biden, and of course that is just garbage. And so this is how you responded.
And you even in love, people have deep disagreements about these things. But I think again, he's fearful of the neo-fascism of Trump.
So
There it is. There it is, y'all. Trump, neo-fascist. Joe Biden, milquetoast neoliberal. Trump, neo-fascist. Well, there's 500,000 dead people in the Ukraine. I guess that's what milquetoast neoliberal means. You give money to actual fascists. Azov, baby. Is that what it means? I will say RBN did not like, Nick did not like Cornel's pushback. And it's always fun to do this because you don't know. Do you want to get in this one? It's funny because watching RBN, the first half was awesome. They were like, what is he doing? Why isn't he focusing on working class issues? And then the last half was Whitey needs to do some hard work. Look inside. Do the work, Whitey. Do the work. And, feel bad. That's what I got out of it. I mean, it's funny that they say when you talk about class, you talk about race. They're the same thing. Race and class are the same thing. You talk about race, you talk about class. In America, you talk about class, you talk about race. And then they said that race is used to divide the working class. And then you focus on how white people will never understand. They said something in there. It's like how men will never understand women. Okay. I guess we need to do the work. Whatever that means. But to me, it's just this conversation is dividing the working class with race. So, at what point can we focus on the working class? And Cornel says that here in a minute. He's like, Jimmy, you focus too much on class. Nobody focuses too much on class in this country. Have you watched the news? Have you opened Twitter? Not nearly enough focus on class. More focus on class will bring us together. How do I do this thing?
When my what I would say to you here, and this is a big point, and I'm trying to impress upon you going forward, that when you do that, you sound a little bit like Joe Biden, and what you're doing is you're giving a pass to Bernie Sanders and anybody else for voting lesser of two evils. So you're endorsing the Democrats' message in their campaign. And so now people can dismiss your candidacy and say, well, we got to worry about the
agree, Leo.
neo-fascism of
Class
Trump,
reduction
as if Joe Biden
is a thing
isn't
liberals
worse,
came up
which
with.
he is. He's a bigger
Make
fascist.
communists shut up.
And he just crushed a union
And I will
strike
not
on the
try to
railroad,
change
which is
mine.
the definition of fascism. He's now trying to saber rattle with 2 nuclear powers, nuclear war,
That'd be
nothing more
great. I'd love
important
to
than
see
that. And what he's doing in Ukraine, you know exactly what he's doing, right? So he's the worst warmonger in the world. Took 300,000 Ukrainians have already been slaughtered in this proxy war that was provoked by NATO, which you know. So when do you think that when you say that about, when you call Donald Trump a neo-fascist and you don't say that about Joe Biden, what do you say when I tell you that you're undercutting your own campaign and you are propping up the Democratic message, which is that they are the lesser of 2 evil and you have to vote for Joe Biden so we don't have fascism? By the way, we already have fascism. As we all know, fascism is the joining of corporate and government to screw the worker. And that's exactly what Joe Biden, the Democrats, and Pete Buttigieg did. And so they will keep doing it, and they're not stopping it. And they're also for censorship, which is the hallmark of fascism. So this idea that Donald Trump is more of a fascist than Joe Biden undermines your own campaign. There's no doubt about that. And so what I would encourage you to stop doing that. What do you say back?
No, we deeply disagree on that. I don't think, and this is why I disagree with Nick too, that and I appreciate your advice here, cast in a respectful way, but we do, and I disagree with Brother Nick on this too, that I just got back from Mississippi. You know that. You know what the Jenkins and Parkins, the 2 brothers brutalized by the police. There at the church, the Klan still running wild, not just with votes, but terrorizing black folk. The goon squad finally got caught by the 2 lawyers, Brother Malik and Brother Trent. Now, what does that mean? That means that when you talk about fascism, you're talking not just about the rule of big money, not just the rule of big military, not just the rule of corporate power, so that it's oligarchic in essence, but you're also talking about dictatorial rule, no elections, the elimination of dissident voices.
No elections. I don't know if Jimmy brings it up or not, but what about not running in your own primary? Seems kind of fascist.
And then the scapegoating of the most vulnerable, which it could be immigrants, it could be workers, it could be black people, Jews, Arabs, and so forth. See, under Biden,
by the way,
what you have is a fascist dimension domestically, especially against black folk and others. You and I, the very fact that we're having this dialogue without being eliminated overnight, a fascist regime could completely call into question with the use of arbitrary power.
How about Julian Assange, Dr. Cornel West?
That's what happens in the mass incarceration regime vis-a-vis poor black people and others. Right. So that is the fascist dimension. Similarly, so in terms of militarism abroad, so that there's fascist elements, my brother, there's fascist dimensions. But with Trump, when you have calling into question transfer of power and so forth, that is not the same.
Hey, I mean, like, I'm not a racist. I just have racist dimensions. Joe Biden's not a fascist. He just has fascist dimensions. Fascist dimensions. Fascist dimensions, you know? Okay.
Same thing. And so that doesn't undermine my campaign at all. The campaign's about truth.
100% undermines your campaign. 100%. You're shooting yourself right in the dick before you even start. So that's just bad. You're getting bad advice. I don't know who's advising you, but they're giving you horrible advice.
January. I'm a free man. I'm a free man, brother.
So January.
But I want to hear your argument. I want to hear your argument as to how Biden is more fascist than Trump. Just lay it out right quick.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the reason why the deep state Russia-gated Trump was because he wouldn't bomb enough to calm them down. So he wouldn't do enough bombing. The reason they impeached him because he wouldn't ship arms to Nazis in Ukraine, and he was against that. So that's
so just are you defending Trump as somehow being a person who is
Trump? Oh no!
So I don't understand. I don't understand your argument.
At Harvard, you can't defend Donald Trump. You can't even smell like you do. That's gonna be a no-go. Hey, Randall Wilson, he's not pregnant. He just has pregnant dimensions. Ha ha ha. Good one, Randall.
Argument at this point, though, man. What are we talking about?
Okay, so there's.
I want to understand what the content of your argument is, because one can, in fact, bring critique to bear on the system as a whole with the two corporate wings, but somehow, what do you say to trans, and gays, and lesbian brothers and sisters in terms of their rights?
That's it's again.
You know, that's what Lenin said when he stormed the Winter Palace. For the gays and the trans. God help me.
Joe Biden is responsible for the mass incarceration, not Donald Trump. Who is more responsible for black and brown people being locked up and America being the largest penal colony in the world? Is it Donald Trump or would it be Joe Biden? By the way, this conversation is a loser for your campaign.
Well,
sitting here trying to make the argument.
It could be a loser for you too, though.
Trying to make the argument.
No, you trying to make the case that
this is where it gets. I feel like this is to me like it's Cornel being like, "Oh, well, Jimmy, I guess you're kind of racist, fascist yourself. What do you got to say to that? Because where I come from in Harvard, that would be the end of your career, Jimmy." That's what I get that he's saying. Tell me if I'm wrong. What else does he mean? How else is this a loser for? Hey, y'all. Am I still live? Because StreamYard just kicked me out of this thing. Can you still hear me? Somebody in the chat, tell me if you can still hear me. Let's see if my mic is on. Yeah? It says it is. Okay. Well, I'm back. So let's see. They yanked my chain on that one. They must not like this. We're going to see how long we can carry on. But thank you, James. I'm glad to know I'm live. All right, let's keep going. Put it back. Put it back. All right, here we go.
Somehow the Democrats are more fascist than the Republicans. The fascism cuts across the board. But
that's not how you say it, though. You say it's only Donald Trump. You don't say it cuts across the board. You call Joe Biden milquetoast. And
has he talked? I mean, he hasn't called Biden a fascist yet, has he? I haven't heard it.
You called Donald Trump a fascist. So you're not saying Joe Biden is a fascist,
right,
really?
I said there's fascist dimensions to the Biden project.
There it is.
It's like you're campaigning for Joe Biden almost when you're doing this. That's what it sounds like.
Ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
But that's what I'm not saying you are doing that. I'm saying that's what it sounds like.
What it sounds like to you. That's what it sounds like to you. And you got a right to be wrong. You got a right to be right. It sounds like to you. But it doesn't sound like that to a whole host of others at all, though, brother. Not
Okay.
at all.
All right. Again, I'm saying this out of love for you because I do have deep love for you. I have deep respect for you. And we agree on almost everything except the message of your campaign, right? That's the only thing I would hope it would become even more focal. Well, let me just put it this way.
But are you suggesting that the message should be that Biden is a greater fascist than Trump? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that you should talk about fascism or any of that stuff. I think you should.
No, fascism is very real.
I think
you don't think fascism is real in the country?
We're living in it. We're living in fascism.
But I'm talking about escalating in terms of intensity.
It has since Biden became president. It certainly has escalated in intensity. They've censored everybody. They've crushed unions. They've started another war, and now they're saber rattling with 2 nuclear powers. I don't know how I don't know how worse it can get. And by the way,
I mean, yeah, I'm doing this stream, and it just cuts, and I'm like, well, did I make the powers that be angry? And everyone's thinking this now under Biden. And we know it's going to get even worse right before the election time. I'm an idiot for doing this on the YouTube. Just an idiot. I should be on the Rumble, yelling into the void. But I was feeling spicy.
He still hasn't let people out of prison. He still hasn't given student loan. He's still denying us health care. He's an enemy of the worker and a tool of military industrial complex in Wall Street. There's no bigger fascist in the country than Joe Biden. The reason why black and brown people are locked up again isn't because of Trump. It's because of brother Biden. And Joe Biden is proud of that. He brags about that. He brags about the crime bill, and he will never apologize for it. So I'm just letting you know that I really want your campaign to pick up traction. This is the opposite way to do it. Who's ever advising you sounds like an infiltrator.
But why do you keep saying advise me? I'm thinking for myself, brother. I'm a free
I don't mean to insult you. That's not
just question of advice.
I was going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't saying, hey, Jimmy, you're being racist. You're talking down to me because I'm black. But then he made sure, I thought, okay, maybe he doesn't mean that. Maybe he just feels offended. But then he put it on there. I'm a free black man, Jimmy Dore. I'm a free black man. Hey, all right. All right. Now what's Jimmy supposed to do? What's Jimmy supposed to do? Hey, they say race and class is the same thing. Race is used to divide the working class. What are you doing right now?
Okay.
I don't ask who's advising you. You think of yourself. You're a free man too, aren't you?
You're right. You're right. Okay. I was trying to put it in a nice way.
I use that kind of language, my brother. You want to be respectful.
I'm trying to be respectful. That was my.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
I know it look like hard sometimes, but I appreciate it. But we just have disagreements on these things.
Again,
if I undermine the campaign for you, then you're free to have your own view and vision.
Okay.
And people are free to listen
Okay.
to you and be persuaded or not. And
Okay.
I've got mine. I'm listening for your insight. Absolutely right. No doubt about that.
So let me just say this. So the point of running a third-party campaign.
I'm gonna share this video here without comment. This was the time to share it. It was one of the first videos up after this went out. I'm gonna share it without comment because it directly relates to what we just heard. I watched it quite a while ago. So I got to dig. I got to dig through lots of Elsa and Anna videos to find this. But I will find it. Maybe. Possibly. And I found it. Kenny Cams is the video. Let's watch Kenny. He put this up the night that it came out. Without comment.
What's good, y'all? It's Kenny Cams. I tried to record this video 3 times, twice with no audio. So let's get into it. Like, comment, and subscribe. This may be a good one. I am talking about Cornel West's appearance that he just had on the Jimmy Dore show. Jimmy Dore show, I title and name the place where presidential campaigns go to die. RFK, Marianne Williamson, Cornel West, done. They're over. And I respect Cornel West. I love Cornel West. But the one thing that throughout the past 4 years, Jimmy Dore has exposed is the reason why the movement hasn't been growing is because the people at the top of the movement either don't understand or they're nefarious. And I want to make a point about that because I think a little bit here with Cornel West, his ego is coming into play because he is a very scholarly person. He's an academic, and he doesn't want somebody that's not an academic to correct him. But the one thing I did notice is that Cornel West's respect level is different depending on who he's talking to. So first and foremost, one thing I want to address, and Jimmy Dore, love you. Feel free to play this if you want.
It
I'm
is
all
way
for
lower,
it, man.
Jenny. I don't know how to make it
over the last
louder.
4 years, you have helped me understand politics a little bit better and understand
Let me
who
put the
is actually
subtitles
being
on.
nefarious and who is a bullshitter and who's not, if I just say it bluntly, because we are enough time in. The biggest takeaway I have from this is that Cornel West either doesn't really understand what's going on here, or he's lying. And what I mean was, I'm gonna kind of work backward from the initial way I was gonna talk these points here. But the Cop City versus Trump thing that he was talking about, that he conflated purposefully. So and I wonder if that's a tool by academics to conflate something purposely so you can defend it later on the back end when you know you're wrong in the moment. Because Jimmy Dore wasn't comparing the
if people are saying that you're an academic,
Donald Trump.
I mean, an everyday
guy
guy
saying
saying
using
this,
the same tool to oppress,
it's not a good sign.
and to prosecute the people that it does not want to shut up. They are prosecuting political dissidents. That's the point he was making, and it's a very clear point. And I feel like Cornel West it looked like Cornel West was purposely doing that, which is weird as hell to me. It's so weird. And the second point I want to make is, and again, if this video picks up some steam, I can go deeper into detail, but I just want to get these initial thoughts out. So I want to make this video around 5 minutes so you're not here too long. And like, comment, subscribe. I'm gonna start doing more of these if you guys like them. So, but the second point is Cornel West constantly tried to bring it back and try to portray Jimmy as a borderline racist. And that's one of the most annoying things that Black academics do when they're challenged. I don't need advisors. All presidential candidates have advisors. If you don't, if Cornel West doesn't have people advising him, he's incompetent and he shouldn't be running for president. Clearly, 100%. That's an obvious thing. Don't make your campaign. And Jimmy, I know you don't approve of this. I know you don't. You wouldn't.
I don't approve either. What's coming?
I'm saying this from Cornel West, from a black man to a black man. Stop doing like a nigga type campaign, bro. If you don't have anybody advising you if you don't have anybody researching every single major issue, and so you can develop your argument when asked that in public, please hire me. I'll damn near do it for free, bro. Cause like you need it right now.
This channel name.
And it kind of shows how the performance that you've had on these shows. And I love you, Dr. West. You are one of my heroes for the things you've done
yeah, that's it.
Your entire history. But
he's running his therapy with him and God
on so many levels in this interview, and you may have nuked your entire thing, bro. And just because I think it's your ego, I don't want to believe you're nefarious. So I believe it's your ego speaking to where you don't want to hear it, and you actually do have Trump derangement syndrome. I know that may trigger, and I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. I mean the areas of media, that the circles that you run in, you're not getting the truth. So you're being fed that all the time. Of course, you are going to internalize it. It's not true. It's not true. And most of the world knows it. The small bubble that you think, and this is my last and the biggest point. Cornel West is campaigning to a demographic that doesn't exist. If you want to be president, you have to look at the demographics that exist, and which ones can you align yourself with. You can't campaign that's shouting to a crowd that's not listening to you and never will. That's what Jimmy Dore was trying to get across to you. You are yelling at someone that's not there and that doesn't exist. You are in a bubble. You are in a social bubble. It is a extreme minority.
Harvard
that you're speaking to. You need to broaden your message to bring in more people, and then let us on the ground do the educating of all the other issues. But we need them here on the front end. So I'm going to cut this video short. Again, Dr. West, please get a hold of me. BMG
Get a hold of him,
MK
Dr.
on
West.
Everything BMG MK.
Get a hold of Kenny Cams.
Kenny Cams. Get a hold
Do
of
yourself
me.
a favor.
I'm telling you, and I'm not saying this from an ego perspective. I'm saying this because if this is a place that you're lacking, you need to fix it. You have to fix it. You have to fix it. For all the other work that you've done in your career, in your lifetime, it won't matter. This is what matters. None of that will. So when you go down in the history book, they'll forget all of that because of this moment. Please fix this. Please, I appreciate all you did. So please fix this moment because you just screwed up tremendously. I love you, everybody. I'm out. Kenny Cams. Peace.
There you go. So that's Kenny Cam's take on him having advisors. Back to it.
Is to offer an alternative to the two major parties, to bring together disaffected members of those parties,
Yes.
along with independents and others
Yes.
who feel alienated from the political system as it exists. And the best way to do this is by running on economic issues that unite us, but which neither major party is willing to.
Randall, you nailed it, and I'll get to that in a minute. Because when that happened, I go, "Oh, this guy don't have the stones to make it." If you're going to fold over that, you should have been running by my brother Nick the whole time. You're going to fold over that, you're going to fold like a folding chair real quick.
To address, because they're both beholden to the same powerful corporate interest. The Democratic Party long ago abandoned the working class in favor of beating the drum on cultural issues, and now that's all the Democrats have to run on. So if voters are looking for a party running on trans rights and calling Donald Trump and his supporters white supremacists, they can already vote for Democrats. The role of a third party is to focus not on the identity politics that divide us, but on core economic issues that unite us along class lines, like Christian Smalls did at Staten Island. Do you think he led with LGBTQ trans rights and white supremacy? No. Or do you think he organized along class lines? That's what we have to do. You have to organize, meet people where they are. So what is your plan to organize along class lines? Or are you going to keep talking about white supremacy and all those identity politics, which are there, not from the ground up, from the top down, to make sure we stay divided? What is your plan to organize along class lines?
I want to remind you again that Jimmy had the opportunity to run for president, and he did not, because he didn't want the smoke. And that's what I say. It's hard to take your anger that seriously, Jimmy. If I know you had the opportunity to run, you had people that are my friends with political parties begging you to run, and you didn't want to mess up your life. So it's kind of hard. I mean, you're going to tell Cornel what he needs to hear. I mean, you're not going to win people that look like me over where I live by telling us to look inside and do some work. You got to get mad. That's how you win us over.
Well, I appreciate again the clarity and candor of what you have to say. We have profound disagreements, brother. When I organize around white supremacy, I'm not making some utilitarian calculation. I'm speaking as a black man who comes out of a tradition that's been terrorized and traumatized by white elites. And that does not in any way mean it takes me away from class issues. Class issues are crucial. Class issues are fundamental, but it doesn't mean that I'm putting up with white supremacy. One of the problems is that you get too many folk who want to talk class, and can't say a mumbling word about white supremacy, police brutality. Can't say a mumbling word hardly. Or when they do say it, you call it identity politics as if it's not connected to class. I'm hitting these head on. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to strikes. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to greedy bosses. I'm standing with the workers when it comes to obsession with profits and the needs not in any way being satisfied. But I'll never for a minute be silent. I'm not or not raising my voice in terms of vicious treatment of black people, indigenous people, gay brothers, lesbian sisters, or trans. It's not an either or. And that's where you and I have a deep, profound disappointment. So if I see, for example, if I watch your show and I notice you hardly say a mumbling word about white supremacy because it's some kind of identity politics and I'm against it, but I don't want to talk about it. I only want to talk about what people hold in common. Well, black people are not going to hold it in common if you don't say a word about white supremacy, but maybe some of your white friends will. So who are you talking about? You're talking about
your white friends.
Are you talking about just the majority? Jimmy Dore? My dear brother, I will never, ever in a million years not talk about vicious legacies of white supremacy, male supremacy, homophobia, transphobia, and others. But class will always be very much at the center. What brings you and I together is what? Jesus loves our fundamental solidarity with working classes, not just here but around the world. But oftentimes when I hear about your show and you say, well, you know, these identity politics issues get in the way. No, it's 100%. Not getting in the way. 100. Not getting in the way.
100%. They're used by so the Democrats. That's all they have to run on. And when you say that stuff, you just sound like a Democrat because that's all they have. So if you need,
if the talk about the dignity of black people in the face of vicious white supremacy makes me sound like a Democrat, you got the wrong earplug.
Okay,
you're not listening clearly, because if you can't hear the critique of Wall Street, if you can't hear the critique of militarism, if you can't hear the critique of the foreign policy in Ukraine, and all you can hear when they talk about white supremacy is identity politics, then something's wrong with your earplug, though, bro. Something's wrong with you. Okay. We just have deep disagreement with that. But
it's disappointing.
It is what it is. You are profoundly disappointing in that sense. But I still love you, brother.
I still love you too. I still love you too. I know you. I know you. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm talking about having a campaign. I'm not. There's a So,
but the campaign is not about utilitarian calculation. I don't look at black people like a utilitarian calculation. I can't say nothing because these people over here somehow are alienated. I'm telling the truth. I'm fighting for justice. And if people feel as if to talk about white supremacy is alienating, then they're gonna be alienated.
I'll tell you
about my mama.
I'll tell you about this. I'll put it on the line. You know, Jamie says, she says, he can't because he's been in nightclubs all his career and old videos had come out. He has a health condition. He's been vaccine injured. He shouldn't have to ruin his life because people pressured him to run. Jamie, I love you, sister Jamie. I'll make you a promise, Jamie. I'll make you a promise. Okay? You can probably scrape something I said when I was 19 off of Facebook. You probably can. And, you know, I don't know. I'm a little chubby around the waist. Might not be good for my health, but I make you all, I'm going to look straight in this camera and I'm going to make you a promise that if I am ever in Jimmy Dore's position with 1 million subscribers on the YouTube, okay? And Nick Brana, the People's Party, is begging me to run for president. CIA, bring it on. Let's dance, sucker. Tyler McConnell's going to pull the proverbial trigger. Let's do it. That's a promise. I'm not asking anything of Jimmy I won't do myself. So go ahead, like and subscribe. Help me get my 1 million subscribers like Jimmy Dore so you can see me put my money where my mouth is. I promise. I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
My daddy, this ain't no abstract dialogue about politics in the Machiavellian sense.
People is more
when Bernie caught,
we marched together for class politics. We marched together because that's real. But if you think that talking about white supremacy is just identity politics, we got deep disagreement. That's all. So I'm sorry to go on, and you're very kind to let me go.
No, go right ahead. No, go right ahead. I don't. And honest, everything I'm saying here coming from my heart. I want your campaign to succeed, and I want you to have the strongest campaign possible. But Bernie caught on because he would always, if he was given a cultural question or an identity politics question, he would always bring it back to class and economics. And it doesn't. Well, here I was talking to one of Bernie's campaign managers, and this is what he said. Yes, I personally agree white supremacy is one of the causes. But if I lose two potential allies because they roll their eyes and stop listening before I get to their concerns, I've already lost. The civil rights advancements, women's rights, the environmental movement, they didn't happen because people like my dad voted Democrat because that stuff mattered to them. It happened because Democrats appealed to them on economic issues, and a lot of the Democrats they voted for because of economics also happened to vote for that other stuff. And it doesn't work in the inverse. So I'm just giving that to you.
Right. No, I understand. But you can see again how this would be. Keep in mind, bro. Civil rights movement was not because of white folk doing X or Y. It was because it was a social movement led by black people in the South that was multiracial, but led primarily by black folk. And neither party would have done anything without that social movement.
100% right. You're 100% right. No doubt about it. And I think
but that's my tradition. That's my tradition. How can you talk about?
No, I love to hear you talk about all that stuff, and that's good for a radical black activist who's representing his community. But I'm just trying to impress upon you that there's better ways to run a presidential campaign. And so that for a black radical activist, that's great. That's honey. But for someone who's trying to appeal to a wide swath of people, disaffected Republicans, independents, people, that's a death for that campaign. That's my opinion. That's just...
Well, yeah. We'll have to see, but keep in mind, though, brother, that one, I've never, ever said that all of the followers of Brother Trump are fascists. I said he's a neo-fascist Pied Piper. His followers, 1 out of 8 went with Bernie, 1 out of 12 went with Barack Obama. He's got a heterogeneous, diverse group. And I can speak my language of truth and justice as it connects to capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, male supremacy, transphobia, whatever it is. And there's going to be some people who listen, and there's going to be some people who don't. But this is not just a question of political calculation and Machiavellian reflection, brother. This is about the quest for truth and justice. You got to be real. You got to be authentic.
It's just interesting to me because is it about becoming president or is it about being real and authentic? It appears to me it's number 2. Yeah, it happens all the time, Randall. It happens all the time. Where's my mouse? There it is. Happens all the time. I feel this is one of my favorite songs by one of my favorite groups. And I feel this is a better way to reach white folks. Bring this message home. They can relate to this. You ready? How about that? How about we focus on class?
I'm not listening to consultants who tell me to use this particular kind of language with this group and this kind of language with that group. That is the essence of managerial bourgeois politics. I reject it.
So I heard you say one time that someone asked you that same question. Why don't you call Joe Biden a fascist, but you call Donald Trump a fascist? And one time you said that it was because Donald Trump criminalizes and demonizes his political opponents. And that's what fascists do. Well, of course, now they've been trying to criminalize and put in jail Donald Trump, Joe Biden's #1 political opponent, just like they did in Brazil and Pakistan. And so the global elite is doing this to anybody, and they'll do it to you if you actually become a threat. They will criminalize you. They've already started to call you right-wing and white supremacist yourself. And that's the game. They'll call you a sexist. They're going to call you, your followers are going to be sexist, violent, racist, and white supremacist, all that. You've already been called a right winger by the establishment. So that's the game that they play. And what they're doing right now is trying to throw in prison anybody who the donor class doesn't want to run and is going to win. They'll throw in prison. They'll do it to Bernie. They russiagated Bernie. They said all his followers were sexist and racist and violent. They said the same thing that they say about Trump. And they would have criminalized Bernie and put him in jail if he had a spine and he would have stood up to the establishment instead of folding into it. So it's important, I think, that people call out what's happening right now. I don't like Trump one bit. I oppose almost everything he says. And But he called for ending NATO, so I joined him with that, and I'll join with anybody to do good and nobody to do wrong. Okay.
Same here. I'm with you at that. I'm with you on that too.
And so what's happening right now is what they usually do in third world countries, but they're doing it right here. The donor class doesn't want Donald Trump to become president, and he will if he's allowed to run. And so they did this. They did they're now 4 different indictments, each one more ridiculous than the last. And here, RICO, the Georgia anti-racketeering law, is being used to charge Donald Trump. And now the reason I bring this up is because they're the same people that did that to Donald Trump are using the RICO charges to go after activists from Stop Cop City. So let me just give you the story, and then you can.
I'm gonna critique Jimmy a little bit on this. He reads like almost an entire newspaper article, which I guess you got to get your point across. But we're gonna speed it up a little bit. In a nutshell, they're using the RICO thing they used against Trump on black activists in Georgia.
Can comment on it. So
Sure.
Georgia prosecutors have filed racketeering charges against 61 people accused of involvement with Stop Cop City, a protest movement against the controversial Atlanta police training facility. The list of defendants suggests that the case implicates people who have already been arrested on tenuous evidence, like a legal observer who was jailed while monitoring protest activists who ran a bail fund for other defendants, and a trio of activists arrested while handing out flyers with the name of a cop who killed a fellow protester. The RICO charges come as Georgia's RICO statute receives national attention. Donald Trump and a collection of his associates were charged under the state's severe RICO statute last month. The same grand jury that indicted Donald Trump on RICO charges also indicted the Stop Cop City defendants. Are you getting the game now? The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported that on Tuesday. The Cop City Vote Coalition, a group that gathered more than 100,000 signatures to put the facility's construction up for a vote this year, condemned the charges as authoritarian measures by Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr. The group also noted that charging documents described the alleged racketeering scheme as beginning before the police training facility was even announced. Lauren Reagan, executive director of the Civil Liberties Defense Fund, which has been working in support of defendants, said the scope of the case is designed to dissuade people from supporting the Stop Cop City movement. It's been very clear that Georgia's intentions in how they conducted themselves regarding the resistance to Cop City has been to try and scare even above ground law-abiding participants from taking part. I think by roping in a legal observer and people running a nonprofit and running a lawful bail fund is absolutely intended to scare people from supporting this cause now and in the future. In September of 21, Atlanta approved plans to build a police training facility dubbed Cop City by opponents in the city's South River Forest. The plans were controversial. Approximately 70% of locals who weighed in during a public comment opposed the facility, citing its cost $90 million, its environmental impact, and its potential effect on over-policing in Atlanta. When the city moved ahead with the plan for construction, activists protested on the proposed construction site. Police shot and killed a protester, Manuel Tortudia Esteban Paez Terán, in January when they accused Terán of firing a gun. Subsequent autopsies have cast doubt on those claims. Soon after Terán's killing, police charged 19 more Stop Cop City activists with terrorism, despite many being accused of nothing more than misdemeanor trespassing around the proposed construction site. In a later crackdown, police conducted mass arrests at Stop Cop City Music Festival, accusing some people of engaging in property damage at a nearby protest. On the questionable basis that those people allegedly had mud on their shoes. The music festival was held in a forest. One of those legal observers was an attorney with the Southern Poverty Law Center and the National Lawyers Guild. Footage appears to show Thomas Jurgens being arrested while wearing one of the neon green hats that identifies NLG legal observers. We had some differences. When I say we, I mean myself and the Attorney General's office about who should be charged with what they should be charged with, Boston told WABE. She added that Jurgens' case was one of the touch points of a number of touch points that ultimately led me to make the decision that I have made here now. The value set of our office is that I will only proceed on cases that I believe I can make beyond a reasonable doubt. The RICO charges also name 3 activists who were arrested this summer and charged with money laundering and charity fraud connected to their work running a bail fund that supported Stop Cop City defendants. Prosecutors allege that the trio committed felonies by spending some of the fund's money on such things as gasoline, forest cleanup, totes, COVID rapid tests, media, yard signs, and other miscellaneous expenses. Marlon Couts, one of the bail fund organizers named in the RICO charges, told the Daily Beast that the indictment was part of an effort to discredit activists. These indictments are just the latest chapter in a long-running campaign by Governor Kemp and Atlanta authorities to terrorize political activists. Since the beginning of the movement against Cop City, the Georgia Attorney General has shown a willingness to abuse the legal process as a weapon against political opposition. Judges have questioned the constitutionality of their methods, and even local prosecutor Sherry Boston has publicly condemned this prosecution as baseless and refused to participate. Make no mistake, this indictment is not about enforcing the law. It's a desperate overreach and an attempt to discredit legitimate political opposition, and it won't work. That's exactly what they're doing to Donald Trump. That's exactly what they'll do to you. That's exactly what they'll do to Bernie Sanders. That's exactly what they'll do to me. They'll do to anybody who is a threat to the establishment. And so,
Let me get a word in. Let me get a word
so I'm
in.
going to let you. So I just want you to.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Take it where you will.
I'm very glad that you're zeroing in on the struggle to shut down Cop City. I'm in deep solidarity with them. We're working together in the coming weeks, virtually and so forth. But there's a logical fallacy, a rational gap.
That's a good part, though.
In your attempt to compare freedom fighters against
He's literally an internet debate, bro. Fallacy, Jimmy Dore. Fallacy. You've committed the Martin Bailey.
vicious system in the name of everyday folk in ghettos and hoods and working class communities against the police versus Trump. I'm not in solidarity with Trump. I want him to have a fair trial. I'm not in solidarity with Trump. simply because they use the same law against courageous, visionary freedom fighters against police brutality and police murder versus the same law against a gangster like Trump doesn't put Trump on a spectrum with freedom fighters, brother, at all. It doesn't put him on the spectrum at all. That's the fundamental difference between you and I in this case. But I'm glad you're talking about shutting down Cop City, because we know it's planned to be in a number of other cities as well. When I'm in Mississippi, it was a goon squad. The goon squad is shot through cities across the country. We saw it in Memphis, it's in Atlanta, it's in Chicago. But the idea of you recognizing that the same weaponization against these courageous freedom fighters is somehow on a spectrum with Trump, I radically reject that. I want a fair trial, but I think he's probably done a number of things that warrants a serious fair trial with him going to jail. But we shall see.
So you're for prosecuting the last president after he loses an election. You think that's a good way to run a democracy? Because again, you don't see the connection that this is the donor class criminalizing anybody who they don't like, and they'll do it to you, and they'll do it to Bernie, and they'll do it to anybody else. And so you don't have to like Donald Trump. I don't at all, but I see what the game is being played here, and you don't see that game being played. You don't see this game, really.
I see the game, the same law against the Proud Boys. I wanted a fair trial. I wanted to make sure they're treated, but at the same time,
they're doing for the Proud
Boys. But see, I think your support of Trump is deeper than you acknowledge. You keep saying, I don't like Trump. I don't like Trump. How can you compare Trump with freedom fighters against police?
I'm not comparing. I'm not comparing that. I'm saying that
you are. You
I'm saying no. I'm not. I'm not. It is.
Of course, they're going to use it against anybody who.
It's the government. Okay. That's amazing that you don't see this. It is unbelievable that you don't see this. This is such a loser for you.
We had this opportunity to show the deep differences. Very deep differences, though. But you do what you got to do, and I'm doing what I got to do, and I learned from you. And I hope you can learn a little bit from me, but we shall see.
The biggest story of my lifetime, if it wasn't Russiagate.
I want a fair trial. 22 years for hanging out at the Ramada Inn. Seems like a fair sentence to me.
Which led directly to the Ukraine war. And I said it was going to in 2017 when they did this. And I told everybody at the Young Turks, they're going to use this to start a war. They're going to use this. And they did. And so here we are. And so what I want to the second biggest story is probably the COVID lockdown, if not the biggest. And so many people who were supposed to be out in front on this dropped the ball. People like Noam Chomsky. So here's the Green Party, what they said. They said the Green Party, which you're running with, the Green Party of the United States Steering Committee strongly supports the use of vaccines, vaccine mandates, and quarantines as part of a comprehensive public health effort to curb and eradicate the novel coronavirus pandemic that has swept the globe since early 2020. The whole thing was a hoax. And here's what the Black Caucus of the Green Party said. They said the National Black Caucus of the Green Party of the United States strongly opposes the use of forced vaccination via mandates and the discrimination that is being generated around these policies. Lockdowns, mandates, and passports are the major issue of the day, with millions of people protesting against them worldwide. In fact, what has become known as the medical freedom movement is arguably the biggest and most diverse international movement in world history. Vaccine mandates and vaccine passports are among the most vile, unconstitutional, immoral, unscientific, discriminatory, and outright criminal policies ever forced upon the population, and goes against everything the Green Party stands for under social justice. These policies are coming from an out-of-control government at the behest of the pharmaceutical industry. The mainstream media and social media are also working in lockstep to censor any and all doctors, scientists, and investigative journalists who have an opposing view or who even question the current mainstream media orthodoxy. Workers are being forced out of their jobs, many with medical exemptions from their doctors. Students are being denied entrance to educational institutions. Needed medical treatment is being denied. Medical privacy is being violated. Constitutionally protected rights to movement and assembly, including the right to travel, are being threatened. Rights to normal societal participation are being decimated. It has taken a while, but more recently, many medical professionals, elected officials, and federal judges have come out fully against lockdowns, vaccine mandates, vaccine passports, and of course, massive censorship. The National Black Caucus of the Green Party of the United States adheres to the principle that informed consent in all personal health and medical decisions is an inalienable human right. Under no circumstances shall any medical treatment or procedure, including psychotropic medications, vaccines, or other injectable treatments, be mandated or coerced. Individuals should be allowed to protect and heal themselves in a manner that best supports their medical spiritual beliefs. So I just want, I understand why you aren't outraged by that. Why don't do you share the sentiment of the Black Caucus of the Green Party, and have you talked to them?
Well, one thing, it's good to have a Green Party where you have a variety of different voices that are clashing, and the tensions are very real. I think there's no doubt that the pharmaceutical companies played a disproportionate role in shaping public policy. I think they're the kind of concerns that you and RFK Jr. and others have.
Guys, the pharmaceutical companies have made some mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Pfizer is a kind old man who puts his pants on in the morning, one leg at a time, just like you.
Certainly well grounded in that sense. On the other hand, we know there's been a whole host of vaccines in regard to other kinds of illnesses that are much more effective. The question becomes making sure, and one of the things I want to do, I want to have a truth commission to find out exactly what was the level of corruption that took place during these years, to be able to see not just the text,
whether or not
the books are out there,
Jimmy
but to have
Dore's
a truth
being racist
commission
tonight,
so that we can see what voices
and
were
whether or
marginalized,
not
what voices were pushed
Pfizer
aside, and make sure it never happens again. I resonate with the spirit of what my green Black brothers and sisters are saying, but the Green Party itself does allow this kind of disagreement and so on. But I'll say this though, brother, I know I got to go, but I must say, see, this is where you and I do in some ways live in different worlds, because as crucial and as important as the issue of vaccines and the COVID situation was, when you say that's probably the most important issue in your lifetime or in the last 25 or 30 years, in light of all the wars, in light of what Palestinians are going through, in light of what workers are going through, 63% of them are living paycheck to paycheck, in terms of all the vicious attacks of the police and the murders and so forth. And yet this vaccine issue is the most important thing. I say, okay, that's my dear brother Jimmy. He's got a right to raise his voice.
Look at Jimmy's face. I look at his eyes. He's not having this. I mean, they shut the school down. They shut the schools down. I'm a school teacher. Just in the middle of March, they go, we're not going back to school. And I was like, what? You're kind of excited, like, really? But then you're like, I guess I should go to the store and get in the gun line. I guess I better go buy 100 pounds of rice. This is a weird vacation. But hey, it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I mean, and I'm kind of with Wes on this. Yeah, the war in Iraq killed 1 million people. That was bad. But the average American barely even knows that happened. They all know this happened. So to be like, the war in Iraq is way more important than COVID lockdown is political suicide. Mima said it.
I don't want to in any way push it away, but I just live in a different world. As important as vaccines have been, if I had another chance, I'd be leaning much more with the Black Caucus. But when I think of the weightiest issues,
much better. At least
vaccines does not come immediately to mind. It just doesn't. That's the kind of world we live in, brother.
Okay.
Maybe I'll spend,
Well, here it is. The Black business owners collapsed by 41%. Black business because of lockdowns. Do you care yet?
Well, no,
70,000 workers in one state were fired because of vaccine mandates. When are you going to care? Do they all have to be trans? How do you? When are you going to care about these workers? When are you going to care about? What are you going to care about this?
They have to be trans for me to care.
You don't care. You don't care. Why don't you care about this?
Why would you accuse me? Of course I care about it.
It's a pretty good line. I mean, watching it again, the setup with the article, look at their faces. Look at the faces. I'm going to screenshot this. Screenshot.
You're saying it's not important.
I didn't say it wasn't important. I said it was not the most fundamental issue in my lifetime the last 30 years.
Forced medical experiments. Forced medical experiments that the business owners.
Seeing that in the background is brutal. That is so bad. That's why he gets so mad, because Jimmy, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Does Jake Ugard say?
Collapsed by 41% black business because of lockdowns. Do you care yet?
Well, no,
70,000 workers in one state were fired because of vaccine mandates. When are you going to care? Do they all have to be trans? When are you going to care about these workers? What are you going to care about? What are you going to care about this?
They have to be trans for me to care.
You don't care. You don't care. Why don't you care about this?
Why would you accuse me? Of course I care about it.
You're saying it's not important.
I didn't say it wasn't important. I said it was not the most fundamental issue in my lifetime in the last 30 years.
Forced medical experiments. Forced medical experiments that the scheme.
Where is the nuance?
Oh my God!
Where is the complexity?
So you missed this story and you're not interested in getting it right.
You agree with Jimmy Dore.
So you missed this story and you're not interested. Well, Dr. West, I wish you the best. You know I love you. You know I support.
You and your precious wife and your family. You stay strong, brother.
Okay, I wish you all the best. I love you. Thanks for coming on. I really do wish you all the best. And I just wish you had a clearer message to reach people, but you don't. It's muddled and it's a loser. So Dr. Peter McCullough, who we've had on.
I like how Jimmy cut it there. You know, I need to take, before I forget, I need to read this from my boy, Nick Brana. And I invited him. Nick, if you're watching, I sent Nick the link. I was hoping he'd come in here and give us a little commentary, but he's busy. It's Friday night. That man's got lots of things to do. But if you're watching, Nick, I love you. If you want to pop in, pop in. Let's read this. This was a People's Party in response to this video posted by, post-duo polists. Do you think that when you call Donald Trump a neo-fascist and you don't say that about Joe Biden, you're undercutting your campaign and you're propping up the Democratic message that they are the less of the evils and you have to vote for Joe Biden? Great point. And someone at People's Party, I bet it was Nick, but I don't know for sure, wrote this beautiful little diatribe. Cornel West and his new Green Party US team have completely destroyed his campaign. They threw out half of the populist platform that we had created when he switched to the Green Party, especially policies with left-right support like for free speech, curb inflation, hand-counted paper ballots. That seems like non-negotiable to me. In mass surveillance, restore press freedoms, restore net neutrality, break up big tech, support veterans, stop central bank digital currencies, regulate AI, fix infrastructure, term limits in Congress, ban corporate lobbying. Why would you remove these policies from your platform? Will any of the podcasts supporting Cornel West admit and confront this? It's as if the Green Party is determined to be irrelevant. Determined to alienate the right, determined to stay in its marginal sectarian silo for another few decades. The Green Party has represented the independent left for decades and has barely broken 1% of the vote in the last 20 years. It is a terminally woke and dysfunctional catastrophe. It sides against working people again and again. It sided with Big Pharma on vaccine mandates. It sided with the deep state on Russiagate. It's obsessed with identity politics and trans issues. It ran a pro-war presidential candidate 3 years ago. How is it that the Green Party has been around since the 1980s and they have never organized a rage against the war machine or a force the vote? How is it that they have never brought together a coalition of people from left to right against the establishment like we have at the People's Party? All of the loudest and most shrill opponents of rage against war were with the Green Party. They condemned us for organizing with libertarians and the right against nuclear war. They condemned us for organizing along class lines, literally the foundation of left organizing. They would rather cancel people and virtue signal to each other than unite against the machine. They would rather disappear every 4 years while we bust our asses organizing actions. Worse still, the Green Party doesn't know the first thing about organizing campaigns either.
we organized a historic campaign launch for Cornel West. Our announcement video went viral with tens of millions of views. And I will say, Cornel, when I think about being kind to you, my Christian brother, you stabbed my other brother, Nick, in the back. For what? Oh, I didn't know. Some people said things about Nick and his ex-girlfriend on the internet. Oh, hey, Nick, thanks for the millions of views. See you later. I'm going to go over here with this party that's never done anything ever. Good luck with your endeavor. And Jimmy, I'm calling you out too for not helping Nick out. You so brave and courageous with the, come on, brother. You could run from your studio. I don't even care. Just get your name on the ballot. Yeah, I wonder, Randall. I wonder. And I'll remake my point. Once I got 1 million followers on here, I'll run for president. Play it back. I told my wife this morning. Play it back. Play it back. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you. We're going to do it. I love my wife to death. But I've made a promise to you. And we're going to run. It doesn't matter what she says. 1 million followers, we running for president. That's not going to be an excuse. Our announcement video went viral with tens of millions of views. We built a website with the production value of $1 million campaign on a shoestring budget. We set up the campaign and initial interviews. We obliterated the mainstream media third-party blackout and were covered in every major national TV, print, and digital news outlet. We generated more online searches for Cornel West than he has ever received in his life. We organized the best independent left campaign launch in decades. People everywhere were thrilled about a new populist party with a fresh sense of possibility. We handed the Green Party a spectacular campaign on a silver platter, and they immediately drove it into the ground. They threw out our populist platform for a woke sectarian left one, have organized 0 campaign rallies, cratered the fundraising, crashed the media, flatlined the search traffic, destroyed the campaign's branding, and have barely communicated with the thousands of volunteers that we signed up for them. Cornel began the campaign by talking about how he was a populist, how he was going to go to Trump country and reach out to the white working class. Oh boy, Cornel, you're batting 1,000 on that one, brother. With that last video we just watched, people around here are going to be real interested in what you got to say. He and Laura Ingraham talked about how much they have in common and about uniting left and right populists on Fox. All of that went out the window when the Green Party took over. If the Green Party isn't controlled opposition, it should be. Well, let's highlight that. Let's highlight that. That's why I'm on here ranting about politics. I call it political solipsism. Political solipsism. I don't know if anyone else in politics is real. So I'm going to get in here and scream, knowing that at least inside my head, I am real. And I'm going to see what kind of change I can make. And if it works, I'm going to be like, wow, it's kind of real. You should do the same. If we all do that, we could build a working class movement and get a genuine working class candidate from like Mao's mass line theory, where we find the most oppressed, screwed up dude in America and we run him for president. Because he knows what it's like to be broke. He doesn't teach at Harvard or participate in the Green Party. The Green Party. You will never unite a working class coalition for a political revolution by lecturing poor people about white supremacy. What a line, Nick. That's the perfect way to say it, dude. Or dismissing the devastation wrought on our lives by COVID mandates and lockdowns. Absolutely. Worst of all, Cornel West will almost certainly drop out before he even reaches election day. His family doesn't want him to spoil the election for Biden and get blamed for electing Trump. They're adamant about protecting his legacy. He and his family still think Biden is the lesser evil, less fascist, less racist. They think there's a meaningful difference between Biden and Trump. So West is going to drop out and try to deliver the election for corrupt warmonger Joe Biden when it becomes clear that West won't win. His campaign will amount to a third Bernie run, where all the time, money, and energy sunk into it gets funneled right back to the establishment. How about that? And Biden will, of course, promise him some administration posts or prestigious university position for sweeping in and playing savior to the Democrats. Cornel West for precious trans rights minister in France. The Green Party has held the left back for decades in this country and has nothing to show for it. It is a Democrat light party, an obstacle to organizing along class lines and building the coalitions necessary to revolutionize this country. As Ralph Nader told us in 2016, the Green Party is a mirage. It will never be bigger than it is today. Garland said that in his video from earlier. You should go back and watch the whole thing. He said there's people in this country that want a revolution. There's people in this country that want reform. Cornel West. That's the difference. Okay? People that want revolution, burn it all down. Build something better. Maybe I'm alone. You guys tell me. Maybe I'm alone in this. If I know my country is founded on heaping stacks of bullshit and being operated by the greatest in the history of the world, I say, let's see the crash. Bring it on. I don't want to live in a lie, no matter how comfy it is. Can you relate to that? Can anyone out there relate to that? I don't want to live in a lie, no matter how comfy it is. That's how I feel. So let's purge ourselves here. Let's watch something else. Let's watch Malcolm X on liberals.
Whites who are trying to solve the problem.
Here we go.
But you never whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox.
Oh, it's not showing it.
The fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to. But the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling. You take him for a friend.
But Malcolm X got what was coming. He got what he asked for this time.
Ooh, love me, love me, love me. I'm Cornel West on Jimmy Dore. That was kind of nice. How about a little Stokely? Stokely always makes me want to do something.
I guess we could start with 1956 for our generation. This was the beginning of the rise of Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King decided that in Montgomery, Alabama, black people had to pay the same prices on the buses as did white people, but we had to sit in the back. And we could only sit in the back if every available seat was taken by a white person. If a white person was standing, a black person could not sit. So Dr. King and his associates got together and said, this is inhuman. We will boycott your bus system. Now understand what a boycott is. A boycott is a passive act. It is the most passive political act that anyone can commit, a boycott. Because what the boycott was doing was simply saying, we will not ride your buses. No sort of antagonism. He was not even verbally violent. He was peaceful. Dr. King's policy was that nonviolence would achieve the gains for black people in the United States. His major assumption was that if you are nonviolent, if you suffer, your opponent will see your suffering and will be moved to change his heart. That's very good. He only made one fallacious assumption. In order for nonviolence to work, your opponent must have a conscience. The United States has none.
Man, see, that makes me want to hear. I want to hear more of what that guy's got to say. What are you talking about, Stokely? How about Stokely at the Dialectic Symposium? That sounds interesting. Let's see this.
I didn't think that I said I wanted black supremacy. You started off by saying I advocated self-determination. I don't know how that equals black supremacy except for your own fear. I think that what the peoples in the third world are saying today is they want to run their own life with their own political system. They want to control the resources of their land. They want to be able to feel that they themselves rule themselves. They want the white Western society to confine itself to its land and rule itself. If that is black supremacy, I am a black supremacist.
I don't know, for some reason I like this. Speaks to me more. And look at my skin. I like it. It's unapologetic.
I'm not.
Let's look up Stokely. Stokely, ready for revolution. Ready for revolution. That's how he answered the phone. I love what's going on in Africa. Stokely is smiling from the grave, man. He worked for this amazing. Ready for revolution. Kwame Ture on revolution and reform. Let's see if this is what I'm looking for first.
Pour libations and light candles for Stokely, who never left the struggle.
Is this Stokely?
Said in 66.
That's not Stokely. That's something else. Let's watch this.
It will be solved. There's a difference between revolution and reform.
It's kind of quiet.
Big difference. In reform, a man observing a foundation, observing a system, sees many problems. But he assumes that there's nothing wrong with the system. The foundation of the system for him is a good system.
Yeah.
Thus, what he seeks to do is to change the building as best he can, but he wants to leave the foundation intact. Example, if I came to this building, it's Ackerman Hall, is it not? If I came to Ackerman Hall and I looked at the foundation was falling. It was just falling, couldn't possibly stand. If I were a reformist, I'd say, okay, put a piece of board over that. So we cover the foundation. We haven't touched it. Then I'll come here and say, put a window there, put a door here, put a frame here, put 2 rooms where there used to be 1. What I'm doing is reforming the system. I am trying to make it look different, but I'm keeping the same rotten foundation. You must understand that, because this country is full of reformists, black people notwithstanding. And these reformists have a tendency to deceive you, to let you believe that things are really being changed, when in fact the foundation has not been touched, and the longer it stays, the more rotten it becomes. The more rotten it becomes. A revolutionary comes into the building, observes Ackerman Hall, and says, looks at the foundation and said, hey, this foundation is filthy, it's rotten, it's corrupt, it must be torn up. A new one must be put in its place. Once he makes that decision, and once that theoretical decision is demonstrated actively in his day-to-day life, you have a revolutionary. Thus, a revolutionary is not someone who seeks to reform a system, he's someone who seeks to replace it. I'm a revolutionary. I'm not a reformist. I want the American system destroyed. It must be destroyed. It has to be replaced.
Amen.
It has to be replaced. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Preach it, Brother Stokely.
Again, I'm not calling for revolution. I see it coming, and I want to be part of the solution. I don't want to be part of the problem. I've been the victim too long, so I want to be part of the solution. I am saying that all of us must opt for revolution. All of us must opt for revolution. Now, revolution is very scientific. There's nothing emotional about it. There's nothing emotional about it. President Sekou Touré, a wise and courageous African revolutionary, says that in revolution there is no sentimentality. There is none. Whether I like something or do not like something, it is scientifically determined for me, thus I must do it. So I have no sentiments involved in my work. I just have to do what I have to do, and I will do it the best way I can. Best way I can. Now, revolution, we said, follows scientific laws. If you come and you look at the foundation and you see the foundation is rotten, and you say that you want to replace this foundation, you want a new system, you're asking for revolution. Because what you're saying is that you want another system where there is a system. And we know scientifically that no two things can occupy the same place at the same time. I mean, that's logic. So if you say that you're against capitalism and you want another system put in the place of capitalism, then all you're saying is that you want revolution, because capitalism and this other thing cannot occupy America at the same time. Only one.
Nah, awesome.
Only one
Base.
will occupy it. Only one will be dominant. Thus, if you say you want revolution, you understand you're talking about scientific principles. Two systems cannot occupy the same space at the same time. I'm opposed to capitalism. I seek an economic system which must follow the principles of scientific socialism. This system must come, will come, all over the world, America notwithstanding. It must come and will come.
I feel like he predicted the future. If Stokely could see what's happening right now, he would be so happy, especially about Africa, because he moved to Africa, changed his name to Kwame Ture. This lecture, if you've never seen this, Kwame on Zionism and Imperialism, this is one of the bravest things I've ever seen. You know, I might go for 3 hours tonight. I might keep it up because I love Kwame Ture. I think I'm gonna keep it going. This video is insane.
Is it imperialism? No,
it's out of one ear. Oh,
that
well.
great man, V.I. Lenin, at the turn of the century, wrote a book entitled Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. Is it imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism? Yes. If one would read this little pamphlet, one would see here that Mr. Lenin had precisely pointed out that all of the world had already been conquered and divided by colonial powers. There was no else in the world left to be conquered or divided by colonial powers. This is the time when Zionism comes to rise. Zionism comes to look for a state when everywhere else in the world is already dominated. Thus, in order for Mr. Herzl to get a country for Zionists, what he did was to attach himself to imperialism, British imperialism in this case, quite specifically. Of course, as an African who suffered under the heels of British imperialism, I can have no love for it, and certainly I cannot love anyone who attaches themselves to it and attaches themselves to it for the foundation of a state and then call this a liberation movement. Liberation movements fight against imperialism, not with it.
Total silence.
The legal foundation of the state of Israel is what is known as the Balfour Declaration. This declaration was issued in 1917. A man in the government of Britain named Balfour wrote a paper and promised the Jews a national home. The national home he promised them was an area which Britain was colonizing, Palestine. Palestine didn't belong to the British, just like Ireland doesn't belong to the British, even though they have troops there. But here, these British imperialists signed a note and gave it to the Jews, and they accepted it. Where is the morality for this? If you say that Israel belongs to you, then you don't go to a thief to get Israel, you go and take it. Once you go to an immoral being such as British imperialism, and this is the basis for you getting the land, then clearly here those who are truly liberation fighters must question this. The basis, we say, is the Balfour Declaration, and Zionists know it. The Zionism is certainly not a liberation movement because it never fought against any imperialism. As a matter of fact, today, Zionism is the baby, child, and infant protector of imperialism in the Middle East. It carries out the interests of American imperialism. As a matter of fact, Zionism and American imperialism is like this. If our tax dollars would stop giving money to Israel, the state would sink tomorrow. And certainly no one can deny that American imperialism is the leading imperialist nation in the world. So we cannot see how a liberation movement is so tied, string, and ham to American imperialism.
You know what I need to dig into is some people very close to me, evangelicals. I need to dig into how were the evangelicals programmed in the 40s and 50s to support Israel almost more, I would argue, more than they support Jesus. I've gotten in arguments where they're like, I can't support that Vivek Ramaswamy because he doesn't support Israel 100%. And I was like, well, so I guess they're God's chosen people. They can do whatever they want, right? Yes, they can. We got to support them. I don't understand it. I need to get to the root of how it was programmed because it doesn't. Is it as simple as like Israel has to exist for Jesus to come back? Is that what's going on in the evangelical mind? I mean, I was raised in it, but I still don't. I feel there's some deep state trickery going on that I can't fully explain yet.
They work hand in hand with American imperialism. Thus, they can hardly be a liberation movement. In addition to this, Zionism has nothing to do with anything religion, nothing. All religions are concerned with human beings after they die. That's what religions are for. Islam will tell you what happens to you when you die. As a matter of fact, this which forces you to live a good life so that after death, you'll be able to enjoy the rewards of heaven. The same is true for Judaism, but Zionism says nothing about the individual after they're dead. They don't give a damn about you. Zionism has nothing to do with religion at all, and one should not make the confusion here. The Palestinian state belongs to the Palestinian people. This is a fact.
You don't hear that every day. This one's
as big as bad as the FBI is. You know, I think as big as bad they are with all this thing, they would pick him up overnight. You know, and Rap Brown, fat who they know they couldn't pick up.
Mr. Carmichael, my first comment is a historical correction. The blacks did not build the pyramids, the Jews did.
The Jews?
That's
I'm
number
sorry.
one.
I beg your pardon?
The blacks did not build the pyramids, the Jews did. That's comment number one.
Okay.
That's right, Jewish labor under
We
Egyptian
understand.
slave masters.
Continue.
My second comment.
Wouldn't have built them without slavery either.
Continue,
My second
please.
comment.
We let him state it. You want to help him? Come. You can help him.
Comment number two.
I'm not gonna listen to all 8 minutes of this, but you should go back and listen. This is a spicy one. Spicy one. There's one where he debates an entire crowd. He's at like he's at like a Jewish college or something. He debates an entire crowd. Oh, he's something else. My favorite one though was his lecture on the CIA, and I'm just gonna save this for another time. I don't even know. Oh, surely they didn't delete it. Oh, I hope not. Oh, it was my favorite. It was my favorite. Maybe if I look up Kwame Ture. Kwame Ture. Oh, did they delete it? Please say no. He had a great lecture on the CIA, and now I really want to find it because they're hiding it from me. Oh, that was my favorite one. So I'll find it and we'll do a stream on it because I don't like things being hidden from me. That makes me upset. Trying to hide my stuff. I bet they did delete it off YouTube. All right, so this was the other thing in my title. This was a spicy one too. I just finished it before I started this stream. Russell and Sam Harris respectfully disagree. Now, they didn't get anywhere. Can you believe that? They didn't get anywhere. But in the middle of
Sam's Trump bashing, I did make a note of what he says at this point about why people are so split. Why people are so split. And Sam Harris says this. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. So listen to this. Listen to why he says people are so split these days.
This is not an audience that likes him despite his failures of personal integrity. It's an audience that mostly likes him because he is this chaos.
He's talking about Trump.
Right? That he's this kind of wrecking ball that is swinging through our institutions and our political norms and disrupting everything. And so the question really is, why do so many millions of Americans want to see everything disrupted in this way? And it does come back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago about the distrust in institutions, some of which has been well earned. I think the role that wealth inequality and a sense of loss of opportunity is playing is rarely remarked upon. It's amazing to me how little we grapple on either side of the political aisle, that we grapple with the implications of wealth inequality now. And so I think that is certainly a variable, but it's not a straightforward one. There are a lot of people who are not at the bottom of our economic stratum that support Trump or support the disruption of everything and support this kind of populism on the right. I think it's, for me, the bright line with Trump, and whatever you want to say about his character, and I've said many things about it.
So he says it's because the bright line with Trump is that Trump, he didn't concede an election. And then Russell goes on to be like, what about Russiagate? I just want to hear this one more time. Because it's in his head. This is in his head.
Ukraine, right? So for instance, out of your analysis is what the Ukrainian people themselves that simply doesn't care, right? This is not an audience that likes him despite his failures of personal integrity. It's an audience that mostly likes him because he is this chaos machine, right? Mm-hmm. He's this kind of wrecking ball,
burn it all down,
that is swinging through our institutions
mm-hmm.
and our political norms and disrupting everything. And
bull crap.
So the question really is, why do so many millions of Americans want to see everything disrupted in this way? And it does come back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago about the distrust in institutions, some of which has been well earned. I think the role that wealth inequality and a sense of loss of opportunity is playing is rarely remarked upon. It's amazing to me how little we grapple on either side of the political aisle, that we grapple with the implications of wealth inequality.
So that's it. That's the part that stuck out to me. And he doesn't grapple with it very long. But he knows somewhere deep down in his Trump deranged brain that people are upset today because wealth inequality is worse than it's ever been since like ancient Egypt. And no one feels like they have a chance in life. No one feels like there's a way out. The smartest people went to college and got a degree, and now they are debt slaves for the rest of their life. When they go to the bank to try to buy a home for their family, they get a big red rejected stamp, boop, on the top of their application. How do I know that? Believe me, I've done the research personally twice. And what's the reason? Student debt. So if we lived in an honest society, when you signed up at the ripe old age of 18 with your fully developed brain, and on the application it says, do you know that you very well will never own your own property if you do this? Most people would not. I think in any just society, we would be like, forever? Maybe bankruptcy? Nope. Can't have bankruptcy. Why? Because of the milquetoast neoliberal Joe Biden. That's the most fascist thing you can do. Prevent someone from owning a piece of the earth that God created for everybody or for only a select few. I don't know. Anyway, Joe was instrumental in that. I wanted to point that out from Sam. I thought that was very interesting. He said that. Next part I wanted to skip to a little bit later on. 131 here. Let's go to this and listen for a minute.
To quote the Oscar, the famous quote around Schindler there, he who changes one life changes the world entire. If we begin to change the prakriti, the prima materia of reality, consciousness itself, we can of course adapt and evolve systems. They will have to reflect those changes in reality. Even you are talking about a shared hysteria when it comes to the phenomena of Donald Trump. Oh, in spite of all this, he didn't do a peaceful transition. Yet somehow he reaches deep down into the spiritual cojones of pretty near 50% of Americans, and they don't give a shit. Now, if we can't find a way of hacking, bypassing this constant conflagration, we are doomed. Otherwise, what is it? 50% are going to subjugate the other 50%? Is that the solution? Not going to happen, is it? We're going to have civil war? Are we ever going to have an election in your country again that doesn't end with the other side going, oh, it was Russiagate, oh, it was stolen? That's just the deal now. So we have to find something else. Where else is it going to come from? This is a time to revivify the spiritual traditions and to note that all of these traditions emerge out of cultures where they believe in a deep unitive experience, that what you experience, and of course there's no way of proving this, and I'm sure that you as a sort of a, I don't mean this offensively, materialist, rationalist will say that your inner peace is a contrivance of neurological stuff that's highly personal and just within your personal skin. And I would offer what you experience in that meditative piece is what I experience in that meditative piece. There is a true unity. And from that place, from our shared humanity, the same way as skeletally, you and I are more or less the same, in spite of our superficial cutaneous differences, we can find some archetypal unity to share together, to build upon. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to become experts in building nuclear power stations or whatever particular solution you or I might think we should pursue, but it does mean we might be able to establish a crucible of...
I'll come right back to this. I'm at 133, but I feel like that's not the part I was looking for. Maybe I didn't take a snap of it.
Apocalypse that both of us, I think, sense is coming in different ways. Of times it brings us to dead ends of inquiry, i.e., where does it come from? What is the... Sam, we can use this opportunity. Either political party is the answer. I don't, other than the individuals involved upon the not treaty, but deal. The military industrial complex benefits when there's a war. Big pharma benefits when there's a health crisis. We have to address this. We can't have an ongoing system.
This part was fantastic too.
To resolve those differences, and this shattering of our information space is making it very difficult to apply that methodology.
I actually feel that even something as complex and hotly contested, ironically, as that issue could be resolved with this type of dialectic. Do you agree that when looking for solutions for problems that affect all of us, we should start by addressing the most powerful interests in the world that seem to benefit more than ordinary people? Always check what the measures are that are suggested in order to solve these problems. If the measures are, we are going to impede the freedoms of ordinary individuals as a priority, we are going to tax ordinary people more highly, that is going to engender cynicism. And even the way the problem is described, I think most people, like particularly in our country, conservatism, the sort of the right-wing political movement, is environmentalist. They want to conserve the environment, England's green and pleasant lands. Most Republicans are nationalist. We can find ways of not like bludgeoning people with like my science versus your science. Why did the inventors of mRNA vaccines get censored at the beginning of the pandemic? Why did these Johns Hopkins experts get censored? Why did these experts flourish? You know, instead of going on and on ad infinitum about that, so we are going to have to live on this planet together. It appears that there are a set of interests that continually benefit from crises. Energy companies benefit when there's an energy crisis. The military industrial complex benefits when there's a war. Big pharma benefits when when there's a health crisis. We have to address this. We can't have an ongoing system that is punitive to ordinary people with every single advancing crisis. That has to change. Otherwise, you're going to have ongoing cynicism and people, ordinary people that wear different livery but have ultimately the same interest, attacking one another while nothing significantly changes.
I
In
love
a sense,
what
I
you're
think we have
saying,
to
Russell.
find careful ways of molding
Sounds
the
a
clay
bit
of the argument with the
ominous.
intention of resolution rather than the intention of winning. That, I think, might be an important way that you and I, for example, could contribute.
Yeah, again, it is truly difficult. I mean, what you're talking about are the effects of perverse incentives, and it is to my knowledge, no one has figured out a way to categorically clean this space up, right? So again, I'll come back to the very simple and non-politicized example I brought up a few minutes ago. Developing the next family of antibiotics, right? It is massively resource intensive, right? It costs $1 billion to bring one new antibiotic to market. Who do we incentivize to take to that risk? Most of these drugs don't pan out, right? So you're a company like Pfizer. I would say we need a company like Pfizer to do that work, right? The alternative is to say the government should do that work. Now, the very same people who recoil from the perverse incentive of windfall profits
Preach it,
to
Jenny.
Pfizer when we have a pandemic are some of the same people who will laugh at the prospect of entrusting the government to develop our next generation of medical therapies, right? There's this well understood principle that capitalism and the profit motive and the free market are among all the terrible ways to incentivize people. They're the best ways we've discovered to incentivize creative people to get up early every morning and make the personal sacrifices they have to make so as to do the work that we need them to do to produce this new knowledge generation. And if you think there's some trade-off between remunerating people for the risks they take and the work they do.
Me and Sam
and
be using the same mic.
Despite the obvious possibility of weird incentives, allowing for people to get spectacularly wealthy when they get lucky based on their own intelligence, right? They produce something that's immensely valuable to us, a new antibiotic, and we should let them get rich, right? And if you have an alternative to that, well, by all means, express it. But to my knowledge, we haven't found one.
Now listen to this. Listen to Russell's alternative and tell me if it doesn't sound like COMMUNISM. Here you go.
I'd like to express an alternative, but also outline a few things within your hypothesis. No one is conducting that research at Pfizer precisely because it isn't profitable. So this tells us precisely the mentality that governs at Pfizer. And when indeed there is innovation, you might find that it came from BioNTech in Germany, who were funded by the German taxpayers. And you might find that Pfizer's profits were garnered by charging the American taxpayers who paid for that Pfizer apparent Pfizer innovation, but actually a BioNTech innovation anyway. So what I would say is, it's not like the government, you get a bunch of giddy, silly, owned revolving door civil servant corruptos in on the gig. No, the way that Pfizer would fund universities, the way that Shell Oil fund art exhibitions, you would fund at the level of taxation in response to referenda, in response to a mandate derived from the people of America or the country of relevance. So we want to spend this on developing this new antibiotic that we believe is going to help people. It's not going to be profitable for Big Pharma. You saw how those guys carried on in the last few years, right? So something needs to be radically reevaluated, and we, as sensible public intellectuals and true leaders, are offering you an alternative. We're going to, in fact, offer a one-time windfall tax that takes back the profits from Pfizer and Moderna. We're nationalizing those companies right now, and we will pay for our fine academic academies at Stanford, Johns Hopkins.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Let's leave it on the screen, Jenny. We're going to do a windfall tax, take back all the profit made by Pfizer and Moderna, and then we're going to nationalize your companies. That's an alternative, Sam.
You guys want to see Sam's response? Let's see Sam's response.
Oxford and Cambridge to do this research, and when it works, and by God it will work, you will benefit from it, not Pfizer, not Moderna, you, the good people of America. Mark the X in the box. We'll make sure we count every single vote. That's what I would suggest, Sam. But the very fact that that research isn't undertaken, of course, identifies the glitch in the machine that has to be addressed before all else.
Well, there is a glitch there. The market is. Hold on 1 second. I got to silence the phone here.
Sam, we can use this opportunity to transition to the next part of our conversation. Sam, I want to talk a little bit about
actually, Russell. I need to make one point because I think it's very important. There's a very strange double standard that we all feel in this space, where we think it's somehow morally appropriate for someone to get spectacularly wealthy when they create the new iPhone, or they create a new, blockbuster.
That was funded by the government. That was funded by taxpayers. That tech, I don't think that's right either. They're next on the list.
Most
and
people,
Google, all of them.
Okay, but unless you're going to stigmatize wealth itself or private property itself, unless you're a communist.
Unless you're a communist, here's Russell's time to shine. Come on over into the dark red night, Russell. Join us, comrade Russell. Join us, Russell. Let's see what Russell says.
Most people have this double standard.
No. I know this is wrong.
See, he was so close. I think he's an unconscious communist. I think it is Comrade Brand. He just doesn't know it yet. He just doesn't want to embrace the label. That's all. And I'm okay with that, Russell. You don't have to call yourself that because you want to nationalize the drug companies and do a windfall tax to take back all their profits and give them to everyday people. I don't care what you call it. I'm down with the policy. Absolutely. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, Russell. Let this run just a little bit more. Let's see.
I have to contest this, Sam.
Okay,
I would say Google was funded by public money. So was iPhone, and the public should own it if they pay for it.
Let me just lay out what I think most people feel this. Most capitalists feel this. That there's a difference between getting wealthy by if you're James Cameron and you create the Terminator franchise, right? That's okay to get wealthy.
James Cameron can only make money
we all want to
Terminator
see
movies.
Fun movies every summer, right? So what could be wrong with that? And yet the person who cures cancer shouldn't get wealthy, right? There's something corrupting
it is gross,
about getting wealthy in the service of a true benefit to humanity, right? The person who's running.
No, let me real quick. Let's see if I'm right about this, because he says we're not gonna cure cancer unless we pay the guy $1 billion. This guy keeps popping in my head for some reason. Jonas Salk. Let's see if I'm right. He was an American virologist who developed one of the first successful polio vaccines. And let's see if he made billions of dollars off of it. Is that what he did with it? Let's go down here and see what he did with it. Honors and recognition. I'm pretty sure that he just gave it away. I'm pretty sure he did. Would it say here somewhere? Let's probably say at the beginning, I would say. He chose, here it is. He chose not to patent the vaccine or seek any profit from it in order to maximize its global distribution. This guy did that. How did he do that? How in the world did he do that? How did this happen? So it is possible, Sam. It is possible. Jonas Salk. That's all I got to say.
A global relief organization that's responding to famines in Africa, that the CEO of that charity shouldn't be making $5 million a year, but the CEO of General Motors should be, because how else are you going to recruit them? And what we have with that double standard, we systematically recruit less talented people to solve our most pressing social and scientific problems, right?
I don't know. He just said Jonas Salk was a one-off.
We give every smart. Let me just land the plane here. We give every smart college student a forced choice between getting rich by working for Goldman Sachs or following what might in fact be their ethical vocation into philanthropy, but making an obvious economic sacrifice at the outset, no matter how high they get in the organization, running, CARE or, Doctors Without Borders. They know they're not going to get rich because there's a taboo around doing that. And again, this is an incentive problem. I think we probably want our smartest people working on our hardest problems, and it's not obvious how to incentivize them apart from requiring that they be saints. And I think saints are in short supply.
Because we are not organizing society to generate them. Now, I would say that if we prioritize materialistic models, materialistic rewards, and incentivization models that are predicated on that modality, then we will be doubling down on this false progressivist myth that's driving us ever further towards the kind of apocalypse that both of us, I think, sense is coming in different ways. You for this set of reasons, me for that set of reasons. And I would say that, well, let's face it, the main reason that we're having this conversation, Sam, other than both guys that like having a chat and we love the jiu-jitsu and we can handle a gentle quarrel, is to talk about your waking up app.
Okay, we don't want to hear about his waking up app. There's a couple other parts I took snaps of. 1 hour and 36. We had some good stuff there. We did 131. That's where he did the quote. I like that quote. I like the idea that I think it's a Buddhist saying that good and evil, the world, it's so close that your own actions tilt it one way or another. Even if that's not true, that's a great way to live. Great way to live.
Be they historic or be they present now, this is our shared experience. To quote the famous quote around Schindler there, he who changes one life changes the world entire. If we begin to change the practice.
So this was the next part I
delivering to them.
Snap up.
So my point is,
136.
Twitter's a system, among many systems. Social media is a system. And what we need, in this case, we need a system of communication that is making it easier and easier for even normal people to have truly enlightened and enlightening conversations, where the wisdom is built into the system layer, right? We have the opposite of that. We have the corruption and the dishonesty and the bad incentives built into the system layer, where you have to be fucking Gandhi not to be an asshole on Twitter, at least some of the time, right?
That's how he sees it.
So
it's so hard to be nice.
In answer to your question, no matter how good you get at the meditation game privately and personally, no matter how ethical you get privately and personally, society is still going to be at the mercy of bad systems. And we have to play both games. The reason why you play the individual game and commit so much time and attention to that is because it is the closest point of contact to the difference between happiness and suffering in your case. When you wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. and are the prisoner of your thoughts, right? There's no, not only is the system not going to help you, your friends can't even help you. Your family can't help you. You are alone in the privacy of your own mind, right? All of us are in solitary confinement.
That's me.
All the time.
Political
with respect to
solipsism.
our own mind.
Everyone's fake except for me.
Only a technique of like meditation that allows you
to
break the spell of your identification with thought.
He knows it's a system
can help
problem
you there, and that
he
help does play out in how you are in the rest of your life.
Doesn't.
But again, it's not going to solve our system
Russell
level
knows
problems
what
if
it needs.
millions of us start meditating. It just won't.
Well, there is actually some data to suggest that it will, funded by the David Lynch Foundation in Chicago, and I won't send you those studies because when this ends, I'll bloody well forget this happened. But Sam, now listen, you beautiful man, this is what I'm saying. Is perhaps the reason that these
I love Russell. I love Russell. It's the opposite of Haas's approach. Even Sam Harris, you beautiful, beautiful man. You beautiful man. I like it.
Traditions have always existed, from the
Catch a lot
rishis to
more
the
flies with
Sufis to the
honey.
saints, is because they intuit and perhaps even experience that subjectivity can be a portal to a universal experience.
I like this stuff. Check it out. I think I took a snap because he talked about it was a system issue. And let's fast forward to the last part on here that I wanted to hear. 151. You guys should watch this whole thing. It's on his Rumble. Russell Band and Sam Harris respectfully disagree. Stay free number 203. I don't think I'm ever going to number these because I'll never remember what the number is. Base David Lynch. Okay, so I'm looking for, I think it was 151. 151. Let's see what happened at 151.
Valid project.
I believe that they're
what you
right.
have done is enshrine a zero-sum contest
You guys
between
like
Muslims
the
and
end of
Christians.
this.
Islam and Christianity at their core are incompatible. And I'll tell you why. At their core, Jesus, every Christian, real Christian, asserts that Jesus was divine, and every real Muslim asserts that he wasn't. How do you square that zero-sum contest? You can't.
How I would do this,
Honestly,
how
you
I would
can't.
do this is I would say that your unconscious framing, when you say from a 21st century perspective, enshrines the notion of progressivism, that we're at some current apex now, rather.
Yes, this was the point that he makes. He says, how can you support religion when we're in the 21st century? We need a 21st century perspective. And Russell says, well, you know, you're acting like we're at the end of history. He's Francis Fukuyama. We need a 21st to address these problems like pandemics and global warming. We need a 21st century approach. Let me see if I can find exactly where he says this.
But to pretend to know any specific thing to be true,
There's a goodwill about it.
Might
And
fast it
also,
up a
I
little
would
bit.
say that down here in this place, we meet the archetypes, we meet the perennial, we meet stories, folklore, and dreams, which, while being certainly housed within the metaphysical, have enough ubiquity, I would suggest, Sam, to warrant investigation. And even if investigation isn't the right tool, maybe this short, abrupt, yet beautiful word, faith.
Well, so I take a slightly different line through this than the one you expect. I'm not a devout materialist of the sort that you imagine. I just see that there's a third option, which is to acknowledge what you don't know, right? I think we all stand before an ocean of ignorance, and we broadcast across that ocean rather often metaphysical claims that are unwarranted, right? We do science on the seashore, and we explore the ocean with respect to certain physicalist assumptions, but we also, science is bigger than that. Ultimately, if physicalism is limited and it turns out to be untrue or partial or otherwise misleading, there will be a rational accounting of how we wandered into error there, right? It's not irrational to speculate that maybe mind is not what it seems, right? And maybe its dependency on the brain is not what it seems, right? So all this is fair game, but to pretend to know any specific thing to be true in this area, I think is intellectually dishonest. Yeah. And specifically, but this is the one piece that is truly seditious with respect to the religious project, and which is the basis of my atheism, is one thing that the jury is no longer out on is the merely human origins of certain physicalist assumptions. But we also, science is bigger than that. Ultimately, if physicalism is limited and it turns out to be untrue or partial or otherwise misleading, there will be a rational accounting of how we wandered into error there, right? It's not irrational to speculate that maybe mind is not what it seems, right? And maybe its dependency on the brain is not what it seems, right? So all this fair game, but to pretend to know any specific thing to be true in this area, I think is intellectually dishonest. Yeah. And specifically, but this is the one piece that is truly seditious with respect to the religious project, and which is the basis of my atheism, is one thing that the jury is no longer out on is the merely human origins of our religious institutions and our religious literature, because they broadcast their provinciality and their merely human origins on every page. You read the Bible and ask yourself, how hard would it have been for an omniscient being to have put in a single page of this text evidence of his omniscience? It would be trivially easy to have done that. And there's not a single passage like that in the Bible. Everything in the Bible could have been written by a first century human being.
I love this idea. He wants in the Bible, and in 1995, Mario 64 will be released. I am the Lord your God. Believe. It's so goofy. It's so goofy.
or somebody who lived in the 5th century BC or 1000 BC, depending on what book we're talking about. And so it is with every other religious scripture. So what we know is that the foundational claim, certainly of Abrahamic religion, of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the foundational claim that a specific book has a non-human origin, right? That is the claim that gives you Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. We know that claim is specious and indefensible at this point in history. And what we need, therefore, is a truly 21st century conversation about everything we've been talking about the possibility of self-transcendence, its implications for running a sane society. How do we get billions of people to solve these coordination problems of cooperation?
There it is. The 21st century. We're in the 21st century. Jesus Christ could not possibly understand the 21st century. I want to get a close-up on this. Jesus Christ cannot understand. He could not begin to understand the 21st century. Here we are in the future. We are so advanced, the end of history, the 21st century. 21st century. There's no more advancement. This is the end. Enjoy your PlayStation 5. PlayStation 6 is already dead. I can only think in video game metaphors tonight. There will not be another Jason film.
And converge on common projects so as to not make themselves
I'm so
miserable.
advanced that
All
history
of this
is
a project
over.
that requires a 21st century,
21st
intellectually honest framing. And so the reason why I dispense with religion to begin that conversation is that all of our religious scriptures are intrinsically at odds with one another. They're mutually incompatible. Their divisiveness is right there on the surface, right? I mean, to take one example, I mean, I see that you're resisting this claim, but
Bible Grinch, you're Bible Grinching, you're Quran Grinching. No, because I would say this.
If you're going to pander,
come on,
Russell,
you already know
if you're
what
going to pander to the religious, if you're going to pander to the religious biases of traditional religious people, right? If you're going to tell Muslims that they're not wrong to be Muslim and Christians that they're not wrong to be Christian, right? That these are totally valid projects.
I believe that they're
what
right.
you have done is enshrine a zero-sum contest between Muslims and Christians, because Islam and Christianity at their core are incompatible. And I'll tell you why. At their core, Jesus, every Christian, real Christian, asserts that Jesus was divine, and every real Muslim asserts that he wasn't. How do you square that zero-sum contest? You can't.
How I would do this,
honestly,
how I would do this is I would say that your unconscious framing, when you say from a 21st century perspective,
21st century.
That it generates butterflies in my stomach, and that goes to tickles in my spine, and that creates goose pimples, and that penetrates my mind, and then the whole Big Bang sort of
The 21st century. The 21st century. Had to do that to you. Sorry.
enshrines the notion of progressivism, that we're at some current apex now rather than a temporal gateway, a liminal space where we, like the Hellenists who had to address the peculiar motions of the spheres, were precisely inverse to what they had assumed, like those that preceded Galileo who had to acknowledge that amidst the devices and new lenses, new realms have been uncovered. We cannot judge the semantic devices by which these models and modalities are interpreted in the same way that we might adjudicate their cultural and social baggage.
Don't you love it?
I.e., your numerous yogis and Sufis and their 20-year spells in caves that I hope were free of bats, because that's apparently the only way anyone can catch COVID. I hope that they may not have been able to describe and delineate those experiences using the limited tool of language.
Uh-oh, what have I done?
Meditative journey that are the cultural afflictions and by which these models and modalities are interpreted in the same way that we might adjudicate their cultural and social baggage, i.e. your numerous yogis and Sufis and their 20-year spells in caves that I hope were free of bats, because that's apparently the only way anyone can catch COVID. I hope that they may not have been able to describe and delineate those experiences using the limited tool of language. But I would say there is sufficient data in Buddhism, in Hinduism, in Islam, in Judaism and Christianity to suggest that what we have to overcome is precisely the individual that you have made a personal discovery about with your own meditative journey. That the cultural afflictions and inflections of a religion are an easy way to dismiss them. But I think what is lost in that analysis is real hope, real God. And what I mean by God is love. And the hope and possibility that somehow we can turn the tide of this thing. For me, it doesn't matter if you are an atheist. Some of my greatest teachers are atheists. But what matters to me is that we revere and honor and re-sacralize the earth. Otherwise, how do we save it? They're like, hello, everyone, nothing means anything. You're going to die. You're in limitless space. Now, for God's sake, do something about climate change. Why? Who gives a fuck? You know what I mean?
Great point.
God is real. You are God. The earth is real. The earth is God. We are participating in a miracle right now.
Amen.
Now sit down and meditate and learn to love and recognize that you are the #1 problem in your life. And then we can start overcoming some of this bullshit. It doesn't matter if someone loves Trump. It doesn't matter if someone hates Trump. What matters is love itself. Now, come on, let's get on with this bullshit. Now, if we can't have that kind of conversation, we're just going to sit watching the plane go down, Sam, and just querying who the pilot was. Is it consciousness itself, or was it CIA-sponsored agents that came out of Saudi Arabia, or did they come out of Iraq? And what are we in this war for anyway, baby?
You guys will love Sam's response. You're going to love it. But I'm just telling you, isn't that beautiful? Russell being some anti-nihilism there. It's very beautiful. And Sam will do the most nihilistic thing of all and compare love to, you just wait. You just get what meditative journey. He's an atheist. What? Yes, he is. And he believes in atheistic meditation. So you can file your taxes better, more or less. And Russell says earlier in this interview, what's the point of that? Like he said, like, if there's nothing to this, then how are we gonna rally the troops? Just wait for this. You'll love this.
Well, it's not going to surprise you that I think it's a little more complicated than that, but I agree with you about the power of love. I totally agree with you about the primacy and the power of love, but yeah, we need to acknowledge that culture is a kind of operating system that we're all entangled with.
Yes.
And it's possible to have a pathological culture. And I think you would agree that we have culture, we're suffering from the pathologies of culture. And it is therefore possible to have love, real love, channeled in ways that are pathological, right? I mean, so I mean, just take this is, a topic I occasionally am forced to return to. Happily, it's been many years since it's been in the news in a big way. But you take the link between the doctrine of jihadism in Islam and suicidal terrorism. The link is very direct, despite the fact that many people on the left would doubt it. It's by no means all economics and politics driving people to be jihadists and suicidal terrorists in the Muslim world. Ask yourself about the state of mind of a jihadist just before he pushes the button on his bomb when he's on a bus filled with non-combatants, or he's about to fly a plane into a building, or any other moment of where he's about to commit a suicide. What is from the outside, I think, appropriately judged as a suicidal atrocity. I think it is actually quite likely that that person is experiencing real ecstasy, real love for his fellow Muslims, a real expectation of entering paradise,
But
real
my friend,
faith, real joy.
My friend.
Okay, so
what does that matter?
my point
okay,
is,
but Sam, I
my-
recognize what you're saying. I'm not stupid. I've worked out the rest of this conversation. Sam, well, what do you think the drone operator in Nevada is thinking when they bomb a bunch of Muslim kids in?
It's the nicest way to cut someone off. I'm not stupid. I know where this is going.
Iraq. Does it
It's a change
matter
of
if they're
topic. It's a
cheerful when
change
they
of-
do?
I'm not-
It's the same
That's a
death.
great
It's the
point.
same system.
No.
One set of deaths bomb a bunch of Muslim.
Different ecstasy, real love for his fellow Muslims, a real expectation of entering paradise,
But my
real
friend-
faith, real joy.
My friend.
Okay, so
What does that
my
matter?
point
okay,
is,
but Sam, I
my-
recognize what you're saying. I'm not stupid. I've worked out the rest of this conversation. Sam, well, what do you think the drone operator in Nevada is thinking when they bomb a bunch of Muslim
different-
kids in Iraq? Does it
it's a change
matter
of
if they're
topic. It's a
cheerful when
change
they
of-
do?
I'm not-
It's the same death. It's the same system.
No.
One
They're
set of
feeling
deaths
love.
rationally
My point
undergirded.
is-
One
They're
set of
feeling-
deaths
with
ecstatically
every
undergirded.
business,
What's the
student
difference
loan
between
is
ecstasy
given.
and rationalism? Same dead children.
You can't
No,
have
you're
McDonald's now.
taking the
McDonald's
wrong side of my
Douglas.
point. That's not the point I'm making. My point is, love isn't enough, right? Love can be channeled
It's a
pathologically.
start.
Love is absolutely necessary for a good life, but it's not sufficient, right?
we've got to start there,
A sense
Sam.
of community, a sense of solidarity with other human beings is, I would say, generally necessary for a good life. It's not sufficient, right? You can be feeling love and solidarity as a Nazi among Nazis.
Here you go.
That is a psychologically possible frame of mind. We need to discourage
It's not real
Nazism,
love,
among many
actually.
other things.
It's not real love.
At the
I
cultural
Even
level.
Nazis
Sam, I'm going
love.
to contest that mad
Even
claim
CPI
because,
members
whilst
love.
I acknowledge,
You don't think it's possible for a Nazi to love his children and
I
love his
think the
wife and love
Nazis were-
and love Wagner?
I've looked a lot at
Shed
the
a tear
Nazis.
over Wagner at the end of the
Nazis
day.
love
This is what I would
Wagner.
say. The Nazis were clearly in their giddy genocide having a hell of a time. But what I would suggest is if Nazis were instructed in the true nature of love, that might have given them some recourse and some pause in their dreadful genocidal projects. And I would say there's more than one way to skin a cat. And like the motives and psychological state of a jihadi, as opposed to the psychological state of people running neat and beautiful little rational drones, is of no comfort to those on the arse end of murder, whether it's rationally and
course.
state
Yeah.
sanctioned or
No.
whether it's sanctioned by an ecstatic religious experience. Listen, let's meditate together because it's late in my country and I've got to go home. I've got like 3 kids.
Okay.
My
Yeah,
youngest
yeah.
kid's like 4 weeks.
Sleep
It's not-
is the ultimate meditation. Yes.
Yeah, and I will be actually meditating as well. Should we do a quick meditation now, me and you, like you lead it?
Sure. Oh, sure.
We're going to leave now. Those of us on our locals
That's
platform.
the end of
me
it.
and Sam.
You know, I kind of want to go out on something fun before we turn in for the evening. So I pulled this up. He said love couldn't conquer all. And I think he doesn't know. That's how I feel after that Sam Harris interview. That right there. Yeah. Love power will bring us together. If you never watched this movie, oh man. Maybe one more. Where's it at? It's got to be in here. I just want to hear one chorus.
the Nazbols in the audience. Is this old? A taste for that love that Sam Harris was talking about. That love Sam Harris was talking about. And but I do think this is the last one, I promise. Love can be channeled pathologically. The what? That's not it. It was. He'll be back in about 3 to 5 minutes. Was that me? Maybe I went down. Did Sam get back from Burning Man? I don't know where that one went that I was looking for. I'm going to find it. Oh, there it is. Look at Russell preaching historical progress from a spiritual perspective. That is right. That's what we want. That's what we want, Randall. And I was thinking this new way. This new way. Can you guys see me? If you can still see me, type yes in the chat. I don't want to talk into the void. Jenny says I'll be back in 3 to 5 minutes. Can you guys hear me? Watch the Ukraine war over the last few days. Those Soviets, damn, talk about. Am I still on? Can anyone hear me? Let's check the stream. Is it live? Oh, man. Well, should have saw that coming. I just can't get one in. I guess we got to do let's see if it comes up. Stream suspended for policy violations. Stream. Hey, I'm back. You called it, Jenny. I'm back. I'm back. I don't fully understand. I don't fully understand these policy violations. What policy did I violate? Was it playing too many videos? Do you guys have any ideas? Is it springtime for Hitler in Germany? Winter for Poland and France? Mel Brooks, you son of a gun. You're getting me in trouble. See, I don't know. I don't know what'll happen when this is finally over. I wanted to go out on one other video, and now I'm scared to. I'm going to watch it and see if I can just find the part. It was playing the copyrighted movie too long. You're okay. Okay. I really want to watch this. I'm going to try it. I'm going to be brave. Here we go. Yep, stopping intermittently and commentating. We're going to do 30 seconds. Make it that way. I wanted to talk about this, though, because you talked about it, Russell, and I really do feel, I know I'm being silly, but I think this is true. Look at Russell preaching historical progress from a spiritual perspective. I think you're absolutely right. I think that is a thing. And I love that CPI is trying to do that because I feel in my soul, I'm not a dyed-in-the-wool dialectical materialist. I think it's a great tool set to understand politics in the world. But I also think that there is a place for someone who really gets a serious idea deep down in their spiritual self and they decide to make it happen. It's kind of interesting to me. Like in Marxism, there's Bonapartism, and then idealism would be whatever's going on in Napoleon's mind, which he sure seemed to set his mind to something and pull it off. I guess the Marxist critique would be like, anybody would have stepped up and did that at that time. I don't know if that's true. And I think there is a fusion, unless this is 21st century, we're at the end of history. I think there is a fusion for legit spiritual development and Marxism fusing together. And I'm calling this the new way, which is what Coop learns here at the end of 2001's Wet Hot American Summer.
Be proud of who you are. Huh? Jean? It isn't about the girl, Coop. It isn't? Well, it is. But see if you can follow me here.
All right. We're going to pause so that we don't get deleted off the big one, the one that allows me to talk to you. The fusion of spirituality, our souls connecting through the materialism of the internet. Let's learn about this new way.
It isn't. Oh. So it is, and it isn't. You are ready to be taught the new way. Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
This is what I want you guys to do. I want you to like and subscribe to the channel. I want you to give me every last dollar in your pocket. And I want you to dance. I want you to get up right now, wherever you are. I want you to believe in yourself. I want YouTube to not delete me off the internet, so I'm going to pause and talk for a second. Although this would be much more effective if I didn't have to do that. Okay? I want you to move. I want you to run. I want you to take your shoes off, find some grass, and give it all you got. Do it for Jesus.
Get it fire, get it higher and higher.
Man, did it really do it? Did it really cut me again? Did it really cut me again? Come on. Why? I guess I can just never watch movies, is my guess. That sucks. What is it hurting me to watch a clip of a movie? It's a clip. What does it matter if I watch a clip of a movie? Rumble is our future. I can't believe there's 11 people still watching this. What in the world? I'm just watching videos with my bros. Not down completely. See, can I get it back? Can I get it back? Can I get it back? Am I back? I am back. I've been a good boy, YouTube. Rumble is our future. Rumble is our future. I'm going to finish this damn clip. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to talk for a brief period of time, and then I'm going to play this for 30 seconds. Almost over. Welcome back, ×2. It's good to be back. I was hitting refresh, being a good boy. Let's see if I can finish. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Taking it higher. Taking it higher. What if I make it faster? What if I make it faster? There we go. Hey, am I still there? Am I still on? It looks like I'm still here. I'm still alive. Woo! Woo! We did it. I'm going to make myself big. I did. Indeed. Indeed. Hopefully we'll sneak out of here quietly out the back door, and old YouTube will let me download a version of this real quick. I usually use OBS because I can record a version of it myself, so I don't waste. Are you for real? Are you for real? What in the world? Okay. Let's see if I can get back. YG. Set me free. You know what's weird? I got you again, folks. I know. We watched like hours of political stuff, And then we watched like a couple clips of some movies, and that was it. So one day I'll learn my lesson. Last week Peppa Pig got me. But anyway, we've made the 3-hour mark. Let's get out of here before it all goes bad. I love you all. Music and movies are highly guarded. Absolutely, they are. Capitalist society. We don't make anything in this country anymore other than movies, which Sam Harris said should make you millions of dollars. So they have to be heavily guarded. Heavily guarded. So obviously the stream's been taken down like 3, 4, 5 times. We're not getting any money out of this at all. If you want to support the channel, there's links below in the description box. That's all I'm going to say about it. I don't like talking about that. It feels gross, but I like to say it at the end. And I love you all. God bless you. Thank you for hanging out, having fun with me. It was a blast. You all are angels. All right. Join CPI if you haven't already. And catch you next time. I love you all. Sleep tight. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Randall. Thank you, everybody that stopped by. Love you all. And I love Noah was here. Jamie. Fascist Dimensions, Jamie. Hope I didn't make you upset. I just wanted to tell you I'm running for president when I get 1 million subscribers. This will probably be a couple weeks. All right. Peace out, y'all. You're the best. See you on the streets, Caleb, or elsewhere. Peace. Enjoy your weekend. God bless.